The night I died wasn't the night they left me in the wasteland. It was the night he looked into my eyes and told the world I was nothing. But here's what Alpha King Kalen Drake didn't know. Some things you reject don't stay broken. They come back. Stronger. If you want to see how a discarded Omega became the nightmare of every Alpha who ever underestimated her, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city. Let's see where you're watching from. The Bond ceremony hall stank of pine smoke and old blood. Naira Hale stood at the back of the stone chamber, pressed against the cold wall like she could disappear into it. Around her, wolves in human form filled the space, warriors with scars crossing their faces, women draped in furs that cost more than Nira had ever owned, elders whose eyes tracked every movement like predators sizing up prey. She didn't belong here. Everyone knew it. "Move, Omega!" A shoulder slammed into hers. Naira stumbled, catching herself against the rough stone. The wolf who'd shoved her, Mira, daughter of the pack's head enforcer, didn't even look back, just kept walking, her dark hair swinging like a victory flag. Nira's fingers curled against the wall. She focused on breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth. The meditation technique her mother had taught her before they'd found her mother's body in the western forest, throat torn out. Accident during a hunt, the pack leaders had said. Nira had never believed them. "You shouldn't be here," the voice came from her left. Tomas, one of the younger enforcers. He wasn't cruel, not really. Just honest in a way that cut deeper than insults. "The ceremony is for wolves withstanding. I know what I am." Nira's voice came out quieter than she wanted. Tomas shifted uncomfortably, his enforcer jacket creaking with the movement. He was maybe 25, with the kind of face that hadn't quite hardened into the permanent scowl most warriors developed. "I'm just saying, when the bonds reveal themselves, it's going to be alphas and betas pairing off. Maybe a few deltas if they're lucky. You're setting yourself up for—" "I felt it." The words tumbled out before Naira could stop them. Tomas went very still. "What?" "3 days ago." Nira's hand moved to her chest, just over her heart, where the sensation had burned like hot iron. "I felt the pull, the connection. It's real, Tomas. I have a mate." For a moment, something like pity flickered across his face. Then he shook his head, slow and deliberate. "Naira, Omegas don't get true bonds. Everyone knows that. Whatever you felt, it wasn't my imagination. It was probably just residual energy from the Alpha gathering last week. It happens. The power throws off our senses, makes us feel things that aren't there." Nira wanted to argue, wanted to grab him by his enforcer jacket and make him understand that she knew the difference between imagination and the bone-deep certainty that had woken her from sleep 3 nights running. That somewhere in this room her mate existed, that the pull was so strong it made her teeth ache. But the drums started, deep, rhythmic thuds that echoed off the stone walls and seemed to sync with her heartbeat. The ceremony was beginning. Tomas melted into the crowd without another word. Nira stayed against the wall as the pack members formed a circle around the central fire pit. The flames rose higher, fed by handfuls of sacred herbs that turned the smoke purple and thick. The scent was overwhelming, sage and something sharper, something that made her wolf stir restlessly beneath her skin. Elder Shasa stepped forward, her white hair braided with bones that clicked softly as she moved. She was ancient, older than anyone could remember, with eyes that had witnessed the formation of the pack territories. Her voice carried across the hall without strain. "We gather under the full moon's eye to honor the ancient laws. Tonight, the bonds that have formed in secret will be revealed. Those chosen by fate will step forward. Those marked by destiny will claim their mates." Nira's heart hammered against her ribs so hard she thought they might crack. The pull was stronger now, like a rope tied around her sternum, drawing her toward— what? She couldn't see past the crowd of bodies, couldn't identify where the sensation was coming from, just knew it was there, undeniable, and growing stronger with each passing second. Around her, wolves were whispering, speculating about who would pair with whom. Mira was practically vibrating with excitement, clearly expecting her name to be called. She'd been flirting with one of the beta warriors for months. "I heard the Alpha King himself might attend," someone murmured behind Nira. "Don't be stupid. Kalen Drakey doesn't come to pack ceremonies. He sends representatives. But the full moon alignment only happens once every... Doesn't matter, kings don't bow to ceremony. Naira barely heard them. The pull was getting painful now, a physical ache that made it hard to breathe. She pressed her palm flat against her chest, trying to ease the pressure. What's happening to me? Her wolf had no answer, just paced anxiously, wanting to break free and run toward whatever was calling them. The massive oak doors at the far end of the hall slammed open. The sound was like thunder. Every wolf in the room dropped to one knee, all except Naira, who was too far back, too invisible to be noticed, too shocked by what she was seeing to remember protocol. Alpha King Kalen Drakey walked into the ceremony hall like he owned not just the room, but the air everyone breathed. He was taller than Naira remembered from the few times she'd seen him from a distance. Broader through the shoulders, moving with a predator's grace that made every other wolf in the room look clumsy by comparison. His dark hair was pulled back from a face that could have been carved from granite, all hard angles and sharp edges, with a jaw that looked like it had never smiled. Scars crossed his knuckles where they hung loose at his sides. His eyes, pale gray like winter ice, swept across the gathered wolves with the kind of assessment that cataloged threats and dismissed them in the same breath. He wore black. Always black. No ceremonial furs, no pack insignia. Didn't need them. Everyone knew who he was. Behind him came his inner circle. Warriors who'd fought in the territorial wars, their bodies maps of violence survived. Advisors who'd helped him unite 17 fractured packs into one kingdom through strategy and, when necessary, blood. They fanned out around him like a living shield. Naira couldn't breathe, because the pull, the undeniable burning certainty that had been growing for 3 days, was screaming at her now. Him, it's him, your mate is the Alpha King. No. No, that wasn't possible. That couldn't be possible. Omegas didn't mate with Alphas. The hierarchy was too rigid, the gap too vast. And they especially didn't mate with the strongest Alpha in recorded history, the wolf who'd killed his own father to take the throne at 19, who'd crushed 3 rebellion attempts before his 25th birthday. That wasn't how the world worked. That wasn't... Kalen's head turned. His eyes locked on hers. And Naira felt the bond snap into place like a chain pulled taut. The world disappeared. There was no ceremony hall, no gathered wolves, no whispered conversations. Just that gaze, pale and cold and absolutely focused on her. Just the bond between them blazing to life like someone had lit a fuse. For one perfect, terrible second, she saw recognition flash across his face, saw something in those cold eyes that might have been shock, or maybe horror. His nostrils flared. He was scenting her, she realized, confirming what the bond was already screaming. Omega. She watched the word form in his mind, even though he didn't speak it. Watched his expression shift from shock to something harder. Then Elder Shasa was speaking again, her voice pulling the room back into focus. Naira blinked, disoriented, as the Elder called forward the first pair of bonded wolves. A Beta warrior named Marcus and a Delta scout called Senna stepped into the circle. Their connection was obvious in the way they moved toward each other, the way Marcus's hand found Senna's without looking, fingers interlacing like they'd done it 1,000 times before. The crowd murmured approval. This was a good match. Appropriate. Expected. The ceremony continued. Naira tried to move, tried to step back, to run, to do anything except stand there while her entire nervous system lit up like lightning. Her wolf was going insane, alternating between wanting to submit and wanting to claim, confused by the contradictory signals the bond was sending. But her feet wouldn't obey. Kalen hadn't moved from his position near the fire, hadn't looked away from her. His inner circle had noticed his attention now. She could see them following his gaze, see the exact moment they identified her. The Omega. Standing alone against the back wall like prey trying to blend into the landscape. 3 more pairs were called. Then 5. The hall filled with the sounds of wolves claiming their mates, of bonds being officially recognized. Each pair that stepped forward received blessings from Elder Shasa, acceptance from the gathered pack. Naira's hands were shaking. She shoved them into the pockets of her worn jacket, the only decent piece of clothing she owned, and even that had patches at the elbows. This isn't happening. This can't be happening. But the bond didn't care about logic, didn't care that she was nobody and he was everything. It just burned, demanding acknowledgement. When Elder Shasa called for any remaining bonds to present themselves, Naira felt her legs start moving. No, stop. Don't. But the bond was pulling her forward. Through the crowd that parted around her like she carried disease, wolves stepping back with expressions ranging from confusion to disgust. Across the stone floor that suddenly felt miles long, she could hear the whispers now. Is that the Hale girl? What's she doing? Someone stop her before she embarrass herself. Nira stopped 3 feet from Kaelin Drake. Up close, he was even more overwhelming. Power radiated off him in waves that made her wolf want to roll over and show her throat, made every instinct scream at her to submit, to drop her eyes, to acknowledge her place in the hierarchy. But beneath that, woven through it like gold thread through black cloth, was the bond. Their bond. And it didn't care about hierarchy, didn't care about Omega or Alpha. It just was, burning between them like a brand. You. His voice was deep, rough, like stones grinding together. Not a question, an accusation. Nira's mouth was dry. She swallowed hard, trying to find words that wouldn't make her sound insane. Yes, I felt it. 3 days ago, I thought... Her voice cracked. She forced herself to continue. I thought I was going crazy, but it's real. No. The word hit like a fist to the sternum. Nira blinked. What? Kaelin's expression didn't change. Cold, controlled, absolute. Those pale eyes looked at her like she was something unpleasant he'd found on his boot. You're mistaken, Omega. Whatever you think you felt, you're wrong. Whispers erupted around them. Naira heard Mira's laugh, sharp and cruel, cutting through the murmurs. I'm not wrong. Nira's hands were shaking so hard now that she had to clench them into fists to make it stop. The bond is there. You feel it too. I can see it in your... You see nothing. Kaelin took a step forward. The movement made every wolf in the room tense, made the warriors in his inner circle shift their weight like they expected violence. Listen carefully, because I will say this only once. I am Alpha King of the Northern Territories. My mate will be someone worthy of standing beside me. Someone strong. Someone with bloodlines that matter, with power that complements my own. Each word landed like a blade between her ribs. You are Omega, the lowest rank, born from a disgraced family that couldn't even manage basic loyalty. Your mother was executed for, She wasn't executed. Nira's voice cracked on the words. They said it was an accident, a hunting accident. For challenging pack hierarchy, Kaelin continued, as if she hadn't spoken, as if her words were less than air. She questioned the council's decisions, spread dissent, and when she was dealt with, your family's name became a warning, a reminder of what happens to wolves who forget their place. The room was dead silent now. Even the fire seemed to burn quieter, as if the flames themselves were afraid to make noise. You have no standing, Kaelin said, his voice flat and final. No power, no value to this pack or any other. You're a mistake of genetics, an accident of birth that should have been called years ago. The bond between them pulsed with each word, screaming in protest. Nira could feel it straining, could feel her wolf howling in confusion and pain. The bond, she tried again, is a mistake. Kaelin's eyes were empty. Completely, utterly empty. Like he was looking at furniture. The moon makes errors. This is one of them. Perhaps she's punishing me for something. Perhaps she's testing my resolve. It doesn't matter. Elder Shasa stepped forward, her ancient face troubled. Alpha King, if the bond is true, and I can feel it from here, the power is undeniable, then rejecting it could have consequences. The old laws were written when the packs were weak and desperate. Kaelin cut her off without even looking at her. His gaze stayed locked on Naira. We're neither anymore. I've made the territories strong, united, and I won't jeopardize that strength by shackling myself to weakness. He raised his voice then, making sure every wolf in the hall could hear. Let this be a lesson. Power recognizes power. Strength calls to strength. The bond system works when wolves of equal standing find each other. But when the moon's judgment is this flawed, he gestured at Naira like she was evidence in a trial, then it falls to us to correct her mistake. Naira couldn't breathe. Her chest felt like someone had reached in and grabbed her lungs. The bond was screaming now, the sound of it inside her head drowning out everything else. And even if the bond were legitimate, Kalen said, his voice dropping back to that cold, controlled tone, even if the moon herself descended and commanded me to accept it, I would reject it. I reject this bond. I reject this Omega. I reject any claim she thinks she has on me or my throne. The words carried weight. Old magic, the kind that lived in the marrow of the world. Elder Shasa gasped, taking a step back. Alpha King, the formal rejection. You can't just... I reject it, Kalen repeated, and this time his voice resonated with power that made the stones beneath their feet vibrate. By my authority as Alpha King, by the blood I've shed and the territories I've claimed, I sever this bond. It is ended. She is nothing to me. Nira felt the bond shatter. It didn't break cleanly, didn't snap like a rope pulled too tight. It tore. Like ripping flesh from bone, like pulling her spine out through her chest, like every nerve ending in her body catching fire at once. She heard herself scream, a sound that wasn't quite human, wasn't quite wolf, something raw and animal that came from a place deeper than pain. Her knees hit the stone floor. The impact should have hurt, but she couldn't feel it past the agony radiating from her chest. The bond fracturing sent shockwaves through her entire system. Her vision whited out. She was dimly aware of wolves backing away from her, of someone shouting, of hands reaching toward her and then jerking back like she was contagious. Don't touch her. Kalen's command froze everyone mid-motion. She needs to feel this, needs to understand what happens when Omegas forget their place, when they reach for things that were never meant for them. Nira couldn't form words, couldn't think past the pain. It felt like her insides were being shredded, like her wolf was being torn apart piece by piece. Through the agony, through the white-hot sensation of the bond dying, she heard Kalen speak one more time. Get her out of my sight. Hands grabbed her arms, rough, uncaring hands that dragged her backward. Nira's legs wouldn't support her weight. Her boots scraped against the stone floor, leaving marks. The last thing she saw before the darkness took her was Kalen Drake turning away, his black coat swirling around him, like she'd never existed at all, like she'd been nothing but a brief, unpleasant interruption to his evening. The doors slammed shut behind her. When Nira woke, she was in the dirt outside the pack's eastern border. Night had fallen. Or maybe it was still the same night. She couldn't tell. Time felt broken, wrong, like the rejection had shattered more than just the bond. She pushed herself up on shaking arms. Every muscle in her body screamed protest. The place where the bond had been, where it should have been, was a raw wound in her chest. Not physical, not something another wolf could see, but so real it made her gasp. Around her, the wasteland stretched in every direction. No trees, no shelter, just frozen ground and wind that cut like knives. The temperature had dropped with the sun. Her breath came out in white clouds that the wind immediately tore away. They dumped her in the dead zone, the place where packs left their criminals, their traitors, the wolves who'd committed offenses too severe for execution, who needed to suffer before they died. Their rejects. Nira's laugh came out as a sob. It hurt her raw throat, made her whole chest ache. She was going to die out here. Freeze to death, or starve, or get torn apart by the wild predators that hunted these lands, the rogues and feral wolves who'd been cast out, who'd gone mad from isolation. Maybe that was better than going back. Going back to what? To the pack that had watched her humiliation? To the wolves who'd whispered about her family's disgrace? To a life of serving wolves who'd seen her on her knees, screaming while their king rejected her? She tried to stand. Her legs gave out once, twice, 3 times before she managed it. The wind immediately hit her full force, so cold it burned her exposed skin. Move. You have to move or you'll freeze. Nira stumbled forward. 1 step, another. Her mind was blank except for the single imperative to keep moving, to keep blood flowing, to stay alive for 1 more minute and then another and then another. She didn't know how long she walked. The sky was pitch black, no moon visible through the heavy clouds. Hours maybe. Her hands and feet had gone numb. That was bad, she knew, distantly. Numbness meant frostbite, meant tissue dying. But she couldn't feel anything past the cold and the emptiness where the bond used to be. Her foot caught on something, a rock, a frozen branch, she couldn't tell. She went down hard, hands scraping across ice that tore through her palms. Get up. She couldn't. Her arms wouldn't push her weight anymore. Get up or die. Maybe dying is easier, Nira whispered to the frozen ground. Her lips were cracked, bleeding. The words came out slurred. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory, clear as if she was standing right there. You're stronger than they know, little wolf. Don't let them make you small. I am small, Mom. Tears froze on Nira's cheeks, little tracks of ice. I'm nothing. He proved it in front of everyone. I'm exactly what they always said, worthless, a mistake. You're breathing, aren't you? Then you're not nothing. Then you're not done. Nira's fingers dug into the ice. Every muscle screamed. The bond wound throbbed with each heartbeat, a constant reminder of what she'd lost, what she'd never really had. But somewhere beneath the pain, beneath the humiliation and the cold and the certainty that she was going to die out here alone, something stirred, something that wasn't broken, something that was furious. Nira pushed herself up, one more time, one more goddamn time. She made it to her knees before she had to stop, breathing hard, the world spinning around her. But she was up, not lying face down in the ice waiting for death. Up. Fuck you, Kaylin Drake, she whispered to the darkness. The words were barely audible, stolen by the wind. Fuck you and your throne and your perfect bloodlines. The anger felt good, clean, better than the pain. Nira used it. Let it burn in her chest where the bond used to be. Let it fuel her as she forced herself to her feet, as she took another step forward into the wasteland. She was going to survive this. Not for revenge. Not yet. She was too weak, too broken for those kinds of thoughts. But she was going to survive out of spite. Because dying here would prove him right. And Nira Hale was done letting anyone else tell her what she was worth. The cave appeared just before dawn. Nira almost walked past it. Would have, if not for the smell. Faint, animal, but not hostile. Something had denned here recently, left behind the scent of fur and body heat. She dragged herself inside on hands and knees, too exhausted to walk anymore. The space was small, barely enough to stretch out in, carved into the side of a rocky outcrop. But it blocked the wind. That alone made it paradise. Nira collapsed against the back wall. Her body was shutting down. She could feel it, the hypothermia settling in, the way her thoughts were getting fuzzy and disconnected. Her heartbeat was too slow, her breathing too shallow. This is it. This is where I die. At least she'd made it to shelter. At least she wouldn't freeze in the open like garbage left on the side of the road. She closed her eyes. Images flickered through her mind. Her mother, before, laughing at something, her eyes crinkling at the corners, teaching Nira how to track rabbits through snow, braiding Nira's hair and telling her stories about the old days when wolves lived free. Then darker images. Her mother's body, throat torn open, the pack leaders calling it an accident, the way no one met Nira's eyes at the funeral, Kaylin's face, those cold gray eyes looking through her. I reject this, Omega. Pain lanced through her chest, separate from the physical cold. The bond wound throbbed. Nira's breathing hitched. She was crying again, tears she couldn't afford to waste when her body was already dangerously dehydrated. I'm sorry, Mom, she whispered. I tried. I tried to be strong like you wanted. Sometime later, minutes or hours, she couldn't tell, warmth bloomed in her chest. Not the bond. The bond was gone, destroyed, shattered into pieces that could never be put back together. This was something else. Nira's eyes snapped open. Her hands moved to her sternum where heat was spreading like spilled liquid. Not painful, not burning like the bond had burned, just changing something. What? Her wolf surged forward without warning. Usually the shift was gradual, controlled, something you eased into, letting your human mind step back while your wolf mind stepped forward. This was violent, forced, like her wolf was trying to claw its way out through her ribcage. Nira's bones cracked and reformed. Her skin split and healed in the same breath. She tried to scream, but the sound came out as a howl that echoed off the cave walls and probably carried for miles across the empty wasteland. The pain was excruciating, worse than the bond breaking. Her spine extended, her jaw elongated, Her fingers curved into claws that scraped against stone. But she didn't fully shift. Her body locked halfway between forms, too wolf to be human, too human to be wolf. Stuck in the space between, the painful middle ground that every wolf learned to avoid. The heat in her chest intensified, spread through her entire body like wildfire. And then, everything snapped back. Human again. Completely human. Nira lay panting on the stone floor, her body slick with sweat despite the cold. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Still alive, still breathing, but different. She could feel it in every cell. Something had fundamentally changed, shifted, rewired itself at a level deeper than bone. She pushed herself to sitting. The movement was easier than it should have been. Her arms, which had barely been able to support her weight minutes ago, held steady. Nira looked down at her hands. They were steadier. The trembling from cold and exhaustion was gone. Her skin, which had been gray with hypothermia, was flushed with healthy color. What happened to me? She flexed her fingers, felt the strength there. Not just normal strength, not just healthy strength, real power. Her wolf stirred beneath her skin, not frantic anymore, not desperate, just waiting. Alert. Different, her wolf seemed to say. We're different now. Nira stood. The movement was smooth, effortless. None of the shaking or weakness from before. She felt like she could run, like she could fight, like she could survive. She moved to the cave entrance and looked out at the wasteland. The sun was rising, painting the frozen landscape in shades of gray and silver. It was still brutal, still deadly, but it didn't look as impossible as it had hours before. Nira took a breath. Let it out slowly. The answer came from somewhere deep. From the part of her that was wolf, that had always been wolf, that maybe had always been more than Omega, but never had a chance to prove it. The rejection broke the bond, but bonds that strong don't disappear. They don't just vanish. Energy doesn't work that way. The power Kaylin had rejected, the connection that should have flowed between them, that should have strengthened them both, had nowhere to go. So it had poured into her instead, all of it. Every ounce of power that should have been shared between an Omega and the strongest Alpha in history was hers now. Hers alone. Nira started laughing. It hurt her raw throat, made her chest ache, but she couldn't stop. The sound echoed off the cave walls and out into the wasteland. They'd left her out here to die. Dumped her like trash, like something so worthless it wasn't even worth the energy of a clean kill. But dying wasn't on her agenda anymore. She had power now, real power. The kind that didn't come from bloodlines or hierarchy or being born into the right family. The kind you earned by surviving what should have killed you. Nira looked down at her hands again, curled them into fists. Somewhere beyond the horizon, Kaylin Drake sat on his throne, surrounded by wolves who bowed and scraped and told him how powerful he was, believing himself untouchable, believing she was dead. Let him believe it. Let them all believe it. Because when she came back, and she would come back, she was going to burn his perfect world to the ground. The first kill came on day 9. Nira had been tracking the rabbit for an hour, moving downwind through patches of dead grass and frozen mud. Her stomach was a knot of hunger so tight it felt like her spine might snap. She'd found water, a thin stream that ran under the ice, accessible through a crack in the frozen ground. But water didn't fill the hollow ache that made her hands shake and her vision blur at the edges. The rabbit stopped to dig at something beneath the snow. 30 feet away. Too far for a human to reach before it bolted. Nira's wolf rose to the surface. Not a full shift. She'd learned quickly that full transformations burned energy she couldn't afford to waste. Just enough to sharpen her senses, to give her muscles that extra burst of speed they needed. She moved. The rabbit's head jerked up, ears swiveling. Too late. Nira's hand closed around its warm body, quick and clean. She snapped its neck before it could scream. Before the sound could alert predators she wasn't ready to face. Her first real meal in over a week. She carried it back to the cave, cradling it against her chest like treasure. The walk felt longer than it should have. Her legs were weak, unsteady. 9 days of near starvation had carved her down to nothing but bone and desperation. Inside the cave, protected from the wind that never seemed to stop, Nira skinned the rabbit with a sharp rock. Her hands remembered the motions from childhood, her mother teaching her to prepare game, back when they'd had a place in the pack, back when life had made sense. She ate it raw. Couldn't risk a fire. Smoke would be visible for miles across the flat wasteland, and she had no idea what else hunted these lands. What else might see smoke as an invitation? The meat was warm, gamey, tough from the rabbit's lean winter body. It tasted like survival, like one more day of breathing. When she finished, blood smeared across her mouth and chin. She sat back against the cave wall and stared at her hands, not shaking anymore, not weak. The power that had flooded her system when the bond shattered was still there. Growing stronger each day, like something that had been sleeping her entire life was finally waking up, learning what it could do. She flexed her fingers, felt the strength coiled in her muscles, strength that shouldn't have been there. Omegas were built for submission, for support roles, not for this. What am I becoming? Her wolf had no answer, just that steady presence, more alert and focused than it had ever been before. Mott. By the second week, Naira had developed a routine that kept her alive. Wake before dawn, when the temperature was at its lowest and movement was dangerous but necessary. Check the cave entrance for tracks, make sure nothing had found her while she slept, nothing that might be waiting just outside. Drink from the stream, breaking through the thin ice that formed overnight. Hunt. The hunting was getting easier. Her senses were sharper now, refined by constant use and the power still settling into her bones. She could hear a mouse's heartbeat from 50 yards away, could distinguish between the sound of wind through dead grass and the whisper of fur moving through it, could smell the difference between fresh tracks and old, between healthy prey and sick, could move through the wasteland like she'd been born to it. Her body was changing too. The soft omega curves that had marked her as non-threatening, as submissive, were melting away. Burned off by constant movement and scarce food, yes, but also by something deeper, something fundamental shifting in her biology. What remained was leaner, harder. When she caught her reflection in the stream during her daily water runs, she barely recognized herself. Her face was thinner, sharper. Cheekbones she'd never noticed before pressed against skin that had darkened from constant exposure. Her eyes looked different too, darker, wilder, the eyes of something that had learned to hunt or die. She looked dangerous. The realization should have scared her. Instead, it felt right. That day, day 14 by her count, though time was starting to blur, she caught 2 rabbits and a snow grouse. Enough food for 3 days if she rationed it carefully, if she didn't waste a single scrap. She was cleaning the grouse by the stream, her hands red with blood and ice water when she heard the howl. Distant. Maybe 2 miles out, echoing across the empty landscape, but definitely a wolf. Nira went very still. Her hands froze mid-motion, grouse forgotten. Her heart kicked into a faster rhythm. Wild wolves didn't howl unless they were communicating with a pack. Social structures, territory markers, coordination. And there were no organized packs out here, just rogues, cast-offs and criminals, and wolves who'd broken laws bad enough to get them exiled, wolves who had nothing left to lose. She gathered her kills quickly, hands moving with efficiency born from practice, carried them back to the cave at a run, her breath coming in white clouds, covered the entrance with branches and dead grass to hide the opening, the same camouflage she refreshed every few days. Then she waited, pressed against the back of the cave, barely breathing. Her wolf was on high alert, every sense straining. The howl came again as the sun set, closer this time, much closer. Then voices. Human voices, which meant shifted wolves, which meant intelligence, planning. Swear I smelled something. Fresh kill, blood on the wind. You're imagining it, Garrett. Nothing lives out here except us and the rats. Maybe some birds too stupid to fly south. I know what blood smells like. Been smelling it for 20 years. Something made a kill today. Something close. Something that's eating better than we are. Naira's heart hammered against her ribs so hard she thought they might crack. She pressed herself against the back of the cave, willing herself to be invisible, to be nothing. Through the gaps in her makeshift cover, she could see shadows moving. 3 wolves in human form, their bodies lean and scarred from hard living. Rogues, just like she'd thought, just like she'd feared. The one called Garrett stopped 10 feet from her cave, tilted his head back and sniffed the air, nostrils flaring. There, he said, pointed directly at her hiding spot with one scarred hand. Fresh grouse, rabbit, and something else, something alive. Naira's wolf surged up, ready to fight or run. But there was nowhere to run. The cave only had one entrance, and they were blocking it. She was trapped. The branches covering the cave mouth exploded inward, torn away with casual strength. Garrett stood in the opening, backlit by the last rays of sunset. He was massive, well over 6 feet, with shoulders that barely fit through the gap. His face was a map of old violence, nose broken and healed crooked at least twice, a scar running from his left temple down to his jaw. His eyes were pale blue, cold. Well, well. His voice was rough, amused, like he'd just found something entertaining. What do we have here? Nira didn't move, didn't speak. Just watched him with the same focused intensity she'd learned from hunting rabbits. Assessing. Looking for weakness. It's a girl, one of the others said, crowding in behind Garrett. This one was younger, maybe early 20s, with wild hair that stuck out in all directions and eyes that didn't quite focus right. Feral. Damn, didn't expect that. You think she's from one of the packs? Look at her clothes. Or what's left of them. The third rogue pushed past both of them. A woman, older than the others, with half her face covered in burn scars that twisted the skin into permanent snarl. She's been out here a while. Dumped, probably. Some pack's trash. That's mine. Naira's voice came out steady. Cold. Nothing like the scared Omega who'd been dumped here 2 weeks ago. Nothing like the girl who'd collapsed in the ceremony hall. The burned woman laughed, sharp and cruel. Yours? Sweetheart, nothing out here belongs to anyone. Survival of the strongest, and you... She gestured at Naira with one scarred hand. Don't look that strong. Look half-starved, actually. Garrett stepped fully into the cave. The space felt smaller with him in it, the walls pressing closer. Here's how this works. You share your food with us, we let you live. Maybe even let you join our group. We could use another hunter if you're as good as these kills suggest. 3 in one day isn't bad for wasteland hunting. No. Nira stood. The movement was smooth, controlled, using muscles that had gotten stronger without her quite noticing. This is my cave, my kills, my territory. You need to leave. The younger rogue laughed, high and slightly unhinged. The sound echoed off the cave walls. Did she just tell us to leave? Garrett, did you hear that? She told us to leave. I heard. Garrett's expression didn't change. Flat, neutral, dangerous in its calmness. You're new to the wasteland, girl. So I'll explain this once, because I'm feeling generous. Out here, there's no pack hierarchy. No alphas, betas, omegas. No councils or laws or rules about who gets what. Just strong and weak. Just those who can hold territory and those who can't. And right now, he took a step toward her, slow and deliberate. You're weak. Naira's wolf exploded to the surface. Not a partial shift this time. Full transformation, brutal and fast and violent in the confined space. Bones cracked and reformed with sounds like green wood breaking. Her skin split and healed in the same breath. Her clothes tore as her body expanded, reshaped itself into something built for violence. The change hurt. It always hurt. There was no version of shifting that didn't involve breaking yourself apart and putting the pieces back together wrong. But Naira had learned to use pain. Had learned that pain meant you were still alive, still fighting. Her wolf form was larger than it should have been, larger than any Omega wolf she'd ever seen. Leaner, too, built for speed and precision rather than brute strength. Her fur was dark gray, almost black in the cave's shadows, with silver markings along her spine that caught what little light there was. She snarled. The sound was pure threat, pure promise. Garrett shifted too, fast enough that he was clearly experienced. Had probably been shifting in combat situations for years. His wolf form was huge, easily twice her size, all muscle and scarred hide. An alpha, probably. Or had been before whatever got him exiled to this frozen hell. They circled each other in the tight space. Garrett's packmates backed toward the entrance, giving them room. Smart. Getting caught between 2 fighting wolves in a cave was a good way to die by accident. He lunged first. Nira dodged. Barely. His teeth snapped closed an inch from her throat, close enough that she felt the heat of his breath. She twisted, using his momentum against him like her mother had taught her years ago, and raked her claws across his shoulder. First blood. Dark and hot, steaming in the cold air. Garrett roared. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. He spun faster than something his size should have been able to move and caught her with a paw that sent her crashing into the cave wall. Stars exploded across Naira's vision. She tasted blood, her own this time, from where she'd bitten her tongue on impact. Get up, or die. She pushed off the wall, using it for leverage, launching herself at his exposed flank. Her teeth sank into the meat of his hind leg, found the tendon she was looking for. Garrett howled and threw himself sideways, 300 pounds of muscle and rage, slamming her into the ground. The impact drove the air from her lungs. His weight pinned her down, crushing, making it impossible to breathe. His jaws went for her throat, going for the kill now, done playing. Naira's power surged. Not just wolf strength, not just the speed and heightened senses she'd been developing over 2 weeks of survival. This was something else. Something that came from deeper, from the place where the bond power had settled when it had nowhere else to go. She felt it flood through her body like lightning in her veins. Her jaws clamped down on Garrett's foreleg, bit through muscle and sinew, and kept going, kept pressing, teeth grinding against bone. She felt it crack, felt it splinter. Garrett's howl turned into a scream, half wolf, half human, a sound of pure agony. He jerked back, trying to pull free, using all his considerable strength. But Naira held on, her teeth locked like a trap, shaking her head like she was killing prey. The bone splintered completely. Garrett collapsed, his leg useless, twisted at an angle that made the younger rogue turn away. Blood poured from the wound, steaming in the cold air, pooling on the cave floor. Naira released him, stepped back. Her wolf form was breathing hard, sides heaving. She shifted back to human, naked and covered in blood that wasn't all hers, shivering from cold and adrenaline. The younger rogue and the burned woman stared at her with expressions somewhere between shock and terror. "Leave." Naira's voice was hoarse, raw from the growling. "Take him and go. Don't come back to my territory." The woman moved first, smart enough to recognize when a fight was over. She shifted to wolf form, smaller than Garrett, scarred and lean, and grabbed Garrett's scruff in her teeth. Started dragging him toward the entrance, his useless leg leaving a trail of blood across the stone. The younger male followed, stumbling over himself in his hurry to get away. Keep looking back at Naira like he couldn't quite believe what he'd just seen. At the entrance, the woman shifted back, just her head and throat, a partial transformation that let her speak while keeping her wolf strength. "What are you?" she asked. Not hostile, just genuinely curious. Naira met her eyes. "Surviving." They left. Naira listened to their retreat, the sound of dragging, limping, running. Listened until she couldn't hear them anymore, until they'd crossed out of what she'd mentally marked as her territory. Then she collapsed against the cave wall and threw up. Her whole body was shaking, adrenaline crash probably, or shock. Or the delayed realization that she'd just crippled another wolf without hesitation. That she'd gone for the bone, the permanent damage, when she could have just driven him off. That some part of her had wanted to hurt him. She looked down at her hands. Still had Garrett's blood under her nails, on her skin, in her mouth. What am I becoming? The answer scared her almost as much as the fight had. Something that could kill without thinking. Something that knew where to bite to cause maximum damage. Something that had tasted blood and found it satisfying. Something dangerous. She cleaned herself as best she could with water from her small supply. Treated her wounds, bruises mostly, nothing serious. Garrett had been skilled, but she'd been desperate, and desperation made you willing to do things skill couldn't predict. That night she couldn't sleep. Just sat at the cave entrance with the branches pulled back, watching the wasteland, waiting to see if they'd come back with reinforcements. They didn't. Word spread. Naira didn't know how. Didn't know if Garrett and his group told others, or if rogues had some kind of communication network she didn't understand. Some way of passing information across the wasteland's empty spaces. But within a week, she started finding offerings outside her cave. The first was a deer haunch, still fresh, the meat barely cold. Someone had made a kill and left her the best part. Then 3 rabbits, already cleaned and gutted, ready to cook. A collection of herbs that could treat wounds. She recognized wolfsbane for infection, yarrow for bleeding, something else she didn't know, but that smelled medicinal. No one approached the cave itself. No one tried to make contact. But the gifts appeared every few days, always at dawn, always carefully placed where she'd see them immediately. Naira didn't trust it. Couldn't afford to. Trust was a luxury for wolves with packs, with backup, with someone watching their back. But she took the gifts anyway, stored them carefully, because refusing food in the wasteland was the same as choosing death, and she'd already decided death wasn't on her agenda. On the 20th day, she found a different kind of offering. A wolf. Male, young, maybe 18 or 19. Lying in the snow 20 feet from her cave entrance with his throat torn open, steam still rising from the wound. Fresh kill, less than an hour old. Pinned to his chest with a bone splinter was a scrap of fabric with words scratched into it in what looked like charcoal. Tried to claim your territory. We handled it. Naira stared at the body for a long time. The boy's eyes were still open, glazed with death. He'd been lean, underfed, probably desperate, probably thought he could take territory from whoever was living in the cave. Someone had killed him for it. Someone was protecting her. The rogues, the same wolves she'd expected to kill her, to see her as easy prey, were defending her territory like she was pack, like she mattered. She dragged the body away from the cave entrance and left it for scavengers. The wasteland didn't waste anything. By nightfall, it would be picked clean. Took the note inside and burned it in her small fire, watching the fabric curl and blacken. That night, she couldn't sleep. Just sat at the cave entrance and watched the wasteland, trying to make sense of what was happening. She'd come out here to die, been dumped like garbage, broken and powerless and rejected. Now she had territory, had strength, had other wolves bringing her offerings and killing on her behalf. The hierarchy was changing. Not the pack hierarchy she'd grown up with, that was still intact back in Frostfang Ridge, still grinding omegas into dust while alphas took everything. But out here, in the wasteland where the rules supposedly didn't apply, a new hierarchy was forming, and somehow, without meaning to, she was at the center of it. "We're making it change," her wolf whispered. "We're becoming something they can't categorize." The confrontation came on day 34. Naira was hunting near the southern edge of her territory. She'd started thinking of it that way. Her territory, the space she'd claimed through violence and survival, when she caught a familiar scent on the wind. Pack wolf. Not rogue, not wild. Someone from an organized pack with the well-fed smell and clean fur that came from having shelter and hierarchy and regular meals. Her whole body tensed. She dropped into a crouch automatically, scanning for threats. The scent was coming from a small clearing about 100 yards ahead. Multiple wolves. At least 3. Nira approached carefully, using cover, moving from rock to dead tree to depression in the ground, getting close enough to see before they saw her. 3 wolves waited in human form in the clearing's center. Tomas stood in the middle, the enforcer who'd warned her not to attend the ceremony, who'd tried to tell her she was setting herself up for heartbreak. He looked thinner than she remembered, tired. Like the past month had aged him. Flanking him were 2 other enforcers she recognized from Frostfang Ridge. Crenshaw, a beta warrior with a reputation for following orders without question, and Mira's brother, Dane, an alpha who'd always looked at Naira like she was dirt on his boots. "Naira." Thomas's voice was cautious, like he was approaching something dangerous, something that might bite. "We need to talk." Nira didn't move from the tree line. Didn't let them see her fully, didn't give them a clear target. "You're on my territory. You're—" Dane laughed. The sound was sharp, dismissive, cut off when Tomas shot him a look that promised consequences. "We're not here to fight," Tomas said. He kept his hands visible, non-threatening. "The pack sent us to check, to see if you were—" He paused, choosing words carefully. "To see if you survived." "Why would they care?" Nira's voice was flat. "Kalen made it pretty clear I wasn't pack anymore when he had me dumped out here." "Because rogues have been talking," Crenshaw spoke up, his voice rough. "Saying there's a wolf in the wasteland who can't be beaten, who's claimed territory bigger than some pack holdings and built power without a hierarchy backing her." His eyes scanned the tree line, trying to locate her. "They're saying it's you." Naira emerged from the shadows. She knew what they'd see, a wolf who looked nothing like the Omega they'd known a month ago. Leaner, harder, with eyes that had learned to track prey and identify threats, with muscles built from constant movement and scars from fights survived. All 3 enforcers tensed, hands moving toward weapons they probably had hidden. "It is you," Tomas breathed. "Damn, The rumors didn't, we thought they were exaggerating. Thought maybe it was some rogue using your name. What do you want, Tomas? To bring you back. The pack. Things have changed. Alpha King Kalen? No. The word came out flat, final. No room for negotiation. You don't understand. Tomas took a step forward, stopped when Nira's hand moved to the knife she'd made from a sharp rock and leather strips. The rejection, it had consequences, political consequences. The bond breaking like that, He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. There's instability. Other packs asking questions. Wolves questioning the Alpha King's judgment. The council thinks if you came back, if Kalen acknowledged what happened and made some kind of formal amends, he can acknowledge it to the void. Nira's voice was ice, pure cold. I'm not going back to be paraded around as proof of his mercy. Not going back to be Omega again, to bow and scrape and pretend I'm grateful he's letting me breathe. Dane stepped forward, his alpha dominance rolling off him in waves, trying to force her submission through sheer power. You don't have a choice. Pack law says, I'm not Pack anymore. Nira took a step toward them, felt her own power rise to the surface, felt the way it made the air around her change, felt the way all three enforcers flinched. He made that clear when he rejected me, when he had me dumped in the wasteland to die. You don't get to reject someone and then demand they come back when it's convenient, when it serves your political needs. Tomas's expression shifted. Something like understanding crossed his face, softened the hard edges. You're right. You're absolutely right. What happened to you it was wrong, Nira. I should have said something at the ceremony. Should have stood up for you. But Nira, his voice dropped, became almost pleading. If you stay out here, you'll die. Maybe not today. Maybe not this month. But winter's coming. Real winter. Not this early cold. The kind that kills everything. Nothing survives the wasteland winter. Nothing. Then I'll be the first. Crenshaw, who'd been silent, watching, stepped forward. He was older than the others, maybe 40, with scars that spoke of decades of enforcement work. The Alpha King won't accept this. You refusing to return, claiming territory, building what looks like your own power base, he'll see it as a challenge, as rebellion. Good, Nira smiled. It felt wrong on her face, too sharp, showing too many teeth. Let him come out here and deal with it himself. I'll be waiting. She turned and walked away. Didn't run, didn't hurry, just walked back into the wasteland like they weren't worth her time, like 3 trained enforcers weren't a threat. Behind her, she heard Tomas's quiet voice. We need to report this. Report what? Dane's voice was angry. That she's insane? That she thinks she can survive out here alone? No. A pause, heavy with meaning. That she's dangerous. That whatever happened to her out here, she's not Omega anymore. Maybe never was. 3 days later, Nira was fishing in the stream, had gotten good at breaking through the ice and waiting motionless for fish to pass, when her senses screamed warning. Not rogues this time. The scent was wrong, too clean, too organized, too coordinated. Pack wolves. A lot of them. She abandoned the fish, 2 good-sized trout she'd been planning to smoke, and ran for higher ground. Found a rocky outcrop that gave her a view of the wasteland below, of her territory spread out like a map. 12 wolves, all in formation, all moving with military precision toward her cave. This wasn't a check-in. This wasn't diplomacy. This was a hunting party. Nira's heart rate kicked up, but her mind stayed cold. Calculating. 12-1 were bad odds. Even with her new strength, even with the power she'd been developing, 12 trained warriors would tear her apart, would pin her down and drag her back in chains, or kill her if she resisted too hard. She watched them reach her cave, watched them fan out, searching, efficient, professional. These weren't random enforcers. This was a proper tactical team. One of them shifted to human form. She recognized him. Crenshaw again, leading this group. He cupped his hands around his mouth and called out, Nira Hell, by order of Alpha King Kalen Drakey, you are commanded to return to Frostfang Ridge Packlands. Refusal will be considered an act of rebellion against Pack authority. Rebellion. They were calling it rebellion now, giving her a crime, a reason for whatever came next. Nira could run, Should run. 12-1 meant death if she fought, and she hadn't survived a month in the wasteland to throw it away on pride. But running meant giving up her territory, meant admitting they were stronger, meant proving that Omegas, even changed Omegas, even ones with power, would always bow to pack authority. Meant letting Kaylin win. No, the decision was instant, absolute, carved from the same stone as her survival instinct. She'd rather die fighting than run. Naira moved down from the outcrop, silent as snow falling, circled around behind the hunting party, using terrain she'd learned intimately over a month of survival. Got close enough to hear them talking. Not here. Caves abandoned. Looks like she cleared out recently. Check for tracks. She has to be somewhere close, probably watching us right now. Maybe the rogues killed her, would save us the trouble. If they did, we need proof. The king wants confirmation. Body or submission, those are our orders. Naira stepped into the open. All 12 wolves spun toward her. Weapons appeared like magic. Silver knives designed to cut through wolfhide, chains that would bind even in shifted form. And Crenshaw carried a crossbow loaded with what looked like wolfsbane bolts. Here's your confirmation, Naira said. Her voice was steady, calm. The voice of someone who'd already decided how this ended. I'm alive. I'm staying. And anyone who tries to drag me back is going to bleed for it. Crenshaw stepped forward, crossbow pointed at the ground but ready. This doesn't have to be violent, Naira. Just come quietly. The king wants to talk, wants to... I'm not Omega anymore. Naira let her power rise. Felt it fill the space around her, heavy and undeniable. Felt the way the Enforcer's wolves responded. Felt their confusion as their instincts couldn't categorize what she was. And I'm not coming quietly. Not for him. Not for anyone. She shifted. The transformation was faster now, smoother. Practice and necessity had honed it. Her wolf form exploded from her human body like it had been waiting, coiled and ready for violence. Crenshaw's eyes widened. What the... That's not possible. Omegas can't... Naira launched herself at the nearest Enforcer before he could finish. Took him down before he could raise his silver knife. Her teeth found his shoulder, tore through muscle and tendons. Not a killing blow. She could have gone for the throat, but didn't. Just enough to take him out of the fight. To make him dead weight, his companions would have to protect. The others reacted. Half shifted to wolf form, half stayed human with their weapons. Professional. Disciplined. The Enforcer with the crossbow fired. The bolt caught Naira in the ribs, punched through fur and skin and muscle. Wolfsbane burned like acid, like liquid fire in her veins. She felt her muscles seize, felt her wolf form start to collapse. The poison spread fast. Too fast. No, not like this. The power in her chest surged, met the wolfsbane, and burned it away like it was nothing, like her body had learned to metabolize poison. Naira's wolf form stabilized. She ripped the bolt free with her teeth, felt the flesh tear, felt fresh blood pour from the wound, and spat it aside. The Enforcer with the crossbow stared. That's impossible. Wolfsbane should have dropped her instantly. Should have... Naira hit him like a freight train. 300 pounds of wolf moving at full speed. They went down together, rolling through the snow, and she felt ribs crack under her weight. Heard his scream cut off as her jaws closed around his throat. Not killing, not yet, but close enough to make the point crystal clear. She released him and spun to face the others. 7 still standing, 5 in wolf form, 2 human with weapons drawn. Bad odds. But better than 12. Naira charged into the center of them. What followed wasn't a fight. It was chaos. Teeth and claws and blood on snow. Naira moved like something wild, something that had forgotten pack tactics and formation and all the rules about how wolves were supposed to fight. She was pure instinct, pure violence, every lesson about survival the wasteland had taught her. An Enforcer caught her from behind. Claws raked down her spine, tore through fur to the muscle beneath. Naira twisted, impossibly fast, and caught his foreleg in her jaws. Heard it snap. Threw him aside like garbage and moved to the next target. She was losing. She knew it. Taking down Enforcers, but taking damage too. Her shoulder was bleeding where someone had landed a good hit. Her left hind leg wasn't working right, the muscles damaged, ribs cracked from multiple impacts. But she wasn't stopping, couldn't stop. Stopping meant submission, and submission meant going back. Crenshaw shifted to his massive beta wolf form, twice her size, built for endurance and power and grinding opponents down. They collided in the center of the clearing. For a moment they were locked together, jaws snapping, claws tearing, both trying for the killing blow. Nira could feel his strength, could feel how much more powerful he was in raw force. But she was faster, meaner, more willing to hurt, to take damage if it meant landing her own strikes. She went for his eyes. Crenshaw reared back, one eye bleeding, streaming down his face, howled in rage and pain, the sound echoing across the wasteland, and was answered. From the rocks, from the caves, from hiding spots all across the territory, wolves appeared. Rogues. Dozens of them. The ones who'd been leaving offerings. The ones who'd killed the intruder. Others she'd never seen before. They poured into the clearing like a wave of fur and teeth and desperation. The pack enforcers froze. Found themselves suddenly surrounded by wolves who had nothing to lose. Who'd been exiled, rejected, cast out for crimes or challenges, or just being inconvenient. Who'd found something worth protecting. Garrett was there, still limping from the broken leg Nira had given him 3 weeks ago. The burned woman whose name Nira still didn't know. The young male with wild eyes. Dozens more she'd never met, never seen, who somehow knew about her territory and had decided it mattered. An older rogue, gray-muzzled and scarred like he'd survived 100 fights, shifted to human form. "You're on our territory," he said to Crenshaw. His voice was calm, reasonable, the kind of calm that came before violence. "You need to leave." "This is pack business," Crenshaw snarled, still in wolf form, blood still pouring from his ruined eye. "Not rogue concern. This Omega belongs to... She's one of us now." The gray rogue gestured at Nira with one scarred hand. "You attack her, you attack all of us. And there's a lot of us. You want to do the math on those odds?" The pack enforcers looked at each other, doing exactly that math. 12 of them, 8 still combat ready, against 40 rogues who looked desperate and dangerous and very willing to die. Crenshaw shifted back to human. Blood still poured from his ruined eye, running down his face and dripping onto the snow. "The Alpha King will hear about this. This is open rebellion. He won't..." "Good." Nira shifted back to human too, stood there naked and bleeding from a dozen wounds, but standing. "Make sure you tell him I'm not coming back. Make sure you tell him I'm building something out here, and if he doesn't like it, She let her power flood out, not just her own strength, but something deeper. Felt every rogue in the clearing respond to it, felt them recognize what she was becoming. Not Omega, not Alpha, something else entirely, something the hierarchy had no name for. "He can come deal with it himself. I'll be here, waiting." Crenshaw stared at her for a long moment, his remaining eye calculating, assessing, then he nodded to his enforcers. "We're leaving. Collect the wounded. But this isn't over, Nira. You've made yourself an enemy of the pack." "I was never anything else." They retreated, wounded, humiliated, dragging their injured, but alive. Nira had let them live, and everyone in that clearing knew it was a choice. When they were gone, disappeared beyond the horizon, Nira collapsed. The adrenaline drained out of her all at once, left her shaking and weak, and suddenly aware of every injury. The wolfsbane wound in her ribs still burned. Her spine felt like someone had used it for target practice. The gray rogue shifted and knelt beside her. Up close, she could see he was older than she'd thought. Maybe 60, with white threading through his gray hair. "Easy. You're bleeding pretty bad. We need to get you somewhere warm." "Why?" Nira forced the word out through teeth that wanted to chatter. "Why did you help?" He smiled. It made his scarred face look almost kind, almost gentle. "Because you did something we've been too scared to do for years. You told the packs to go to hell and survived it. That's worth protecting. That's worth fighting for." Other rogues gathered around. Someone brought water. Someone else started tending her wounds with surprising gentleness, hands that knew how to treat combat injuries. "What's your name?" Nira asked the gray rogue. "Marcus. I've been out here 15 years, exiled for killing my alpha's son." He said it matter-of-factly, like it was just information, not a confession. Caught him beating a female enforcer who'd rejected him. Didn't plan to kill him. Just happened. "Most of us have similar stories," the burned woman said. She was cleaning the wolfsbane wound, her touch careful. "Crimes. Challenges. refusing to submit to alphas who thought their rank meant they owned us. So we're all rejects, Nira said. We were. Marcus's expression hardened. But you're changing that. Giving us something to be instead of just something we're running from. A territory. A purpose. Something worth defending. Nira closed her eyes. The wounds hurt. Her whole body hurt. Every muscle screamed. She could feel herself starting to shut down, the adrenaline crash hitting hard. But underneath the pain was something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. She wasn't alone anymore. Wasn't just surviving day to day, kill to kill. She was building something, creating something new from the broken pieces the packs had thrown away. And when she was strong enough, when she'd built enough, gathered enough, trained enough, she was going back to Frostfang Ridge. Not as Omega, not as supplicant, as a threat. As proof that the hierarchy they'd built their world on was crumbling. And Kaelin Drake was going to watch his perfect system burn. The thought sustained Nira through 2 weeks of recovery. 2 weeks of lying in the expanded cave system Marcus's rogues had carved out over years of exile, letting her body knit itself back together while 40 displaced wolves turned her territory into something that looked almost like a pack. Almost, but not quite. You need to eat more. The burned woman, her name was Sarah, Nira had learned, dropped a haunch of venison beside her makeshift bed of furs and moss. Your ribs are still showing. Can't lead on an empty stomach. I'm not leading. Nira pushed herself up, wincing as her half-healed spine protested the movement. The wounds from Crenshaw's hunting party were closing, but slowly. Wolfsbane did that. Slowed healing, left scars that took months to fade completely. No? Sarah raised an eyebrow, the scarred side of her face pulling tight in a way that must have hurt, but she never acknowledged. Then what do you call 40 wolves who look to you for direction, who defend territory you claimed, who brought down a pack hunting party because you told them to stand their ground? I didn't tell anyone to. You didn't have to. Marcus appeared in the cave entrance, snow dusting his gray hair and the shoulders of his worn jacket. He'd been out on patrol, checking the borders. They chose. We all chose. That's the difference between what we're building here and what exists out there. He gestured toward the distant packlands, invisible beyond the horizon but always present. Out there, wolves follow because hierarchy demands it, because alphas command and omegas obey, and everyone stays in their assigned place. Here, we follow because we want to, because we found something worth fighting for. Bull putimamite. Nira tore into the venison. Her body needed the protein, needed fuel to finish healing and build back the muscle she'd lost. Following is still following, still power over others, still hierarchy. Power with, Marcus corrected, settling onto a flat rock near her bed. His old bones creaked as he sat. There's a difference. You'll learn it. Or maybe you already have and just don't want to admit it. Over the next week, Nira learned exactly what he meant. The rogues weren't organized like a pack. There was no rigid hierarchy, no enforcers keeping everyone in line with threats and violence. No council making decisions that everyone else had to accept without question. Instead, they operated on something closer to consensus, to negotiation, to respect earned rather than demanded. Hunters brought back kills and distributed them based on need rather than rank. The youngest wolves ate first, then the injured, then everyone else. Scouts reported threats, and the group decided collectively how to respond. Fight, flee, negotiate. Disputes were settled through combat if necessary, but more often through negotiation, through talking until both sides found common ground. It was chaos compared to pack structure. It was also the freest thing Nira had ever seen. How long have you been building this? She asked Marcus one night. They sat by a fire outside the main cave, watching aurora lights dance across the northern sky in ribbons of green and purple. The wasteland could be beautiful when it wasn't trying to kill you. 15 years of gathering the broken pieces the packs threw away. Marcus poked the fire with a stick, sending sparks spiraling upward into the darkness. Started with just me and 2 others, Jonas and Kel, both dead now. Winter took Jonas, infection took Kel. Then Sarah showed up, half dead from the burns her alpha gave her for refusing his bed. Said she'd rather die free in the wasteland than live as his property. Then Garrett, after he challenged an alpha's son to protect his sister from forced mating, broke the bastard's spine. One by one, they came. The rejected, the rebellious, the ones who wouldn't bow. But you never went back, never challenged the system that exiled you. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, staring into the flames. We were surviving, not fighting. There's a difference. Survival is about making it through another day, finding another meal, staying one step ahead of death. Fighting is about changing the world, about making it so the next generation doesn't have to just survive. He looked at her, his old eyes reflecting firelight. You're the first one who made us want to fight, who made us believe fighting might actually work. The weight of that settled on Naira's shoulders like a physical thing. 40 wolves looking to her, trusting her, believing she could somehow fix a system that had been crushing wolves for generations. I don't know how to lead, she said quietly. Good. Leaders who think they know everything are the ones who get their people killed. Marcus stood, his joints popping loud enough to hear. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we start real training. If you're going back to face Kalen, and we both know you are, it's written all over you. You need to be ready for everything he'll throw at you. The training started at dawn and didn't stop. Marcus had fought in the territorial wars 20 years ago, before his exile. He knew combat tactics the way Naira knew hunger, intimately, brutally, without romanticism. The first morning, he put her through drills that left her gasping and bleeding from a dozen small cuts. You fight like prey trying to survive, he said, circling her in the training clearing they'd established. Reactive, defensive. That worked against Garrett because he underestimated you, thought you'd be easy. It worked against Crenshaw's hunting party because you had numbers on your side and they weren't expecting real resistance. It won't work against Kalen Drake. He's been training since before you were born. He's killed alphas who had decades of experience. If you fight him like prey, you'll die like prey. Then teach me. Naira wiped blood from her mouth where his claws had caught her. Teach me how to fight like something that wins. What followed was brutal in ways that made the wasteland survival look easy. Marcus taught her to use her speed as a weapon, to turn her smaller size into an advantage rather than a liability. Taught her where to strike to disable rather than just wound. Tendons that would cripple, nerve clusters that would paralyze, blood vessels that would drain an opponent fast. Taught her to read an opponent's body language, to predict attacks before they came by watching weight shifts and muscle tension. Sarah joined the training sessions, teaching Naira how to fight dirty in ways that made Marcus wince. Alphas expect honor in combat, she said, demonstrating a move that involved raking claws across eyes while biting down on an exposed throat. They expect you to follow rules, to fight fair. Give them pain instead. Give them terror. Make them understand that you're not playing their game anymore. Garrett, his leg healed but still carrying a limp that would never fully go away, taught her endurance. You're stronger than you were when you first stumbled into the wasteland, he said, during a grueling run that took them across miles of frozen ground. But strength doesn't matter if you can't maintain it. Kalen's been training since he could walk. He can fight for hours without slowing down. He'll outlast you if you let him, wear you down until you make a mistake. The younger rogue, his name was Finn, and he'd been exiled for refusing to execute a Delta who'd challenged an enforcer, taught her to hunt in pack formation. You've been solo too long, he said, coordinating attacks with 3 other rogues while Naira tried to defend. Forgot how to move with others, how to coordinate, how to trust that someone has your back. Day after day, Naira trained until her muscles screamed, until she could barely stand, barely think. Then she trained more, pushed past exhaustion into a place where her body moved on instinct, where conscious thought gave way to pure reaction. At night, she studied. Marcus had scouts who watched the pack territories, who reported back on movements and politics and whispered conversations. Naira absorbed every detail like her life depended on it, because it did. Learned that Kalen had executed 2 council members for questioning his handling of the Nira situation, that 3 smaller packs had broken their alliances with Frostfang Ridge, citing instability in leadership and concerns about the Alpha King's judgment, that rumors of the Wasteland Omega were spreading like wildfire through pack communities, becoming legend. They're scared, Marcus said one evening, spreading a crude map across the cave floor. It showed territories, pack locations, traditional boundaries. Scared of what you represent. An Omega who survived rejection, who should have died broken and alone, but instead built power outside their system. Every Omega in every pack is hearing these stories and wondering why they bow, wondering if they have to. Good, Nera said. The word came out harder than she intended, edged with something cold. Marcus looked at her sharply. Revenge is a fire, girl. It'll keep you warm right up until it burns you to ash. I've seen it happen. Watched wolves consume themselves with hatred until there was nothing left. This isn't revenge. Then what is it? Nera stared at the map. At the territories marked out, the pack lands that stretched for hundreds of miles in every direction. The system that had crushed her mother, that had rejected her, that would keep crushing wolves until someone stopped it, until someone proved there was another way. Revolution, she said quietly. The word hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. Marcus smiled. It was a fierce thing, all teeth and old violence and barely contained hope. Then we'd better make sure you're ready for it, because revolutions don't forgive weakness. 2 months after the hunting party incident, a messenger arrived. Not an enforcer, not a warrior. A young female Omega, barely 20, who stumbled into rogue territory looking half frozen and terrified. One of the scouts found her collapsed near the southern border and brought her in. Nera found her in one of the smaller caves, wrapped in furs and shaking so hard her teeth chattered. She fed the girl hot broth, waited for her to thaw enough to speak, to trust that she wasn't going to be hurt. My name is Lena, the girl finally said. Her voice was soft, uncertain, the voice of someone who'd learned early not to take up space. I'm from Silver Pine Pack, 3 territories east of here. I volunteered to bring you a message. From who? Nera kept her voice gentle. The girl was clearly terrified, and frightened wolves did unpredictable things. From the Omegas. Lena's voice dropped to barely a whisper, like she was confessing a crime. From all of us. She pulled a piece of fabric from inside her jacket with trembling hands, unfolded it carefully, reverently. It was covered in names, hundreds of them, written in different hands, different inks, different levels of literacy, some neat and careful, some barely legible scrawls. All Omega names, each one a small act of rebellion. Nera's breath caught. We've been hearing the stories, Lena said, gaining confidence as she spoke. About you, about what you survived, about the rejection, about the wasteland, about what you're building out here with the rogues. And we... Her voice broke. She swallowed hard, forced herself to continue. We want to know if it's true. If an Omega can really be strong, can really fight back and survive, can really be something other than what we've been told we have to be. Nera stared at the names, felt the weight of every signature, every desperate hope, every Omega who'd risked punishment just to add their name to this fabric. It's true, she said. Lena's eyes filled with tears. Then we want to help, however we can. Some of us can sneak information about pack movements, about council decisions. Some can spread dissent, plant questions. Some can... She swallowed hard. Some of us want to leave our packs, want to come here, to the wasteland, want to join what you're building. No. The word came out sharper than Nera intended. She softened her tone. You go back to your packs. You stay safe. You don't risk yourselves for what? For you? Lena's fear was gone, replaced by something fiercer, something that reminded Nera of herself. This isn't about you, Nera. This is about all of us. Every Omega who's been told we're weak, who's been forced to submit to alphas who treat us like property, like breeding stock, like servants. Every Omega who's been rejected, beaten, discarded when we weren't useful anymore. You're not the only one who wants things to change. You're just the first one who survived long enough to do something about it. Marcus, who'd been standing quietly in the cave entrance listening, spoke up. The girl's right. This is bigger than revenge now. Bigger than you and Kaylin and what happened at that ceremony. This is about the whole system, about every wolf it's crushed. Nera looked at the fabric again, at all those names, all those hopes. What do you want from me? She asked Lena. Proof, the girl said simply. Proof that the system can be beaten. That Omegas don't have to bow forever. That there's another way to live. And how do I give you that? Lena's smile was grim, hard-edged. You go back, you walk into Frostfang Ridge and show them what you've become.
Show them that rejection didn't break you. It made you dangerous. Show them that omegas can be strong enough to stand against alphas and survive.
After Lena left, carrying messages back to the omegas, carrying promises of support, carrying hope in her pack like precious cargo, Marcus pulled Naira aside. "You know this is a trap, right?" he said bluntly. "Kalen's been waiting for you to make a move. The second you set foot in pack territory, he'll have every justification to kill you. Trespassing, rebellion, threatening pack hierarchy, take your pick. He'll execute you publicly and call it justice." "I know. And you're going anyway." "I have to." Naira looked toward the horizon where Frostfang Ridge lay, days of travel away but always present in her mind. Those omegas need to see that change is possible, that they don't have to accept the world as it is. Someone has to be first. Someone has to prove it can be done. "Then you don't go alone." Marcus's voice was firm, brooking no argument. "We come with you, all of us. Every rogue who can fight. 40 rogues marching into pack territory? That's an act of war. That's giving Kalen exactly what he needs to unite the other packs against us." "No," Marcus grinned, fierce and wild. "That's a statement. That's showing the world that rejected wolves can stand together. That power doesn't have to come from pack hierarchy. That's revolution." The planning took 3 weeks. They couldn't just march in blindly. Kalen would slaughter them at the border, cut them down before they got within sight of Frostfang Ridge proper. They needed timing, an opportunity, a moment when the political cost of killing them would be higher than the benefit. It came in the form of the Grand Alliance Summit. Once a year, the strongest alphas from all territories gathered at Frostfang Ridge, Kalen's seat of power, the symbolic center of pack authority, to negotiate treaties, settle disputes, and reinforce the hierarchy that kept their world ordered. It was the biggest political event in pack culture. Hundreds of wolves, all the major players, all the alphas who mattered, all watching. "If you're going to make a statement," Sarah said, studying the information their scouts had gathered, "do it when the whole world is paying attention. Make it impossible to ignore. Make it impossible to sweep under the rug like it never happened." The summit was 2 weeks away. Naira spent every hour training, pushed herself harder than ever, past pain and exhaustion into a place where her body became a weapon she could trust. Marcus and the others worked with her, refined her fighting style, taught her to channel the strange power that had settled in her bones after the rejection. "It's not just strength," Marcus observed during one session, where Naira had accidentally forced 3 rogues to their knees without touching them. "It's something else. Like you can shift the pressure in a room, make wolves want to submit even when their rank says they should dominate. I've never seen anything like it." "The bond power," Naira said. She'd finally accepted what it was, stopped trying to deny it. "When Kalen rejected me, when he severed the connection, the energy had nowhere to go. Bonds that strong don't just disappear. The power adapted, changed, poured into me instead of dissipating." "Can you control it?" "I'm learning." Naira focused, tried to pull the power back. It responded slowly. "It's like a muscle I never knew I had. Gets stronger with practice." "Good. Because you're going to need every advantage you can get. Kalen isn't just strong, he's strategic. He'll use every weakness against you." 3 days before they were set to leave for Frostfang Ridge, Garrett pulled Naira aside. His expression was serious, lacking the usual bravado he wore like armor. "I need to tell you something," he said, "about the summit, about what you're walking into." "Tell me." "Kalen's not alone anymore. Word from our scouts is he's taken a mate. Made it official last month with full ceremony." The words hit like a physical blow. Naira's chest tightened, the old bond wound throbbing with phantom pain that shouldn't still exist but did. "Who?" she managed to ask. "Mira, the enforcer's daughter. The one who used to shove you around at pack gatherings. The one who laughed when Kalen rejected you." "Of course." Beautiful Mira, with her perfect bloodlines and alpha connections, with her cruelty and her confidence and her complete certainty that she was better than omegas like Naira. Everything Kalen had wanted in a mate. Everything Naira wasn't. "Does it matter?" Garrett asked carefully, watching her face. "Does it change what you're doing?" Naira took a breath. Let it out slowly. Felt the hurt. Acknowledged it without shame, then set it aside like a tool she didn't need right now. "No,"
she said. It doesn't change anything. He moved on. Good. I hope she makes him miserable. But that night, alone in her cave while the other rogues slept, she let herself feel it. The pain, the anger, the jealousy she hated admitting to, even to herself. The irrational hurt that came from knowing he'd replaced her so easily, like she'd never mattered at all. Then she used it, fed it into the fire that had been burning since the rejection, let it make her stronger, sharper, more focused. By morning, the hurt was gone. Only the determination remained. The morning they left, Marcus gathered all 40 rogues in the main clearing. Some of you won't come back from this, he said bluntly, not softening it. We're walking into the heart of pack territory during their biggest gathering. We're rogues, exiled, rejected, considered criminals by their laws. The odds of us all surviving are basically zero. Anyone who wants to stay behind, no one will think less of you. This is volunteer only. No one moved. No one looked away. Not a single wolf stepped back. But if we do this right, Marcus continued, his voice gaining strength, we change everything. We show every Omega, every Delta, every wolf who's been crushed by the hierarchy that there's another way. That power doesn't have to come from rank. That strength can come from standing together. That rejected wolves can be dangerous. He looked at Naira. Our Alpha is going to challenge their king, and we're going to make sure the world watches. They traveled fast, covering in 2 days ground that had taken Naira weeks to cross alone and dying. Now she moved with purpose, with a pack, no, a family, at her back. They reached Frostfang Ridge territory at sunset on the second day. The border was marked by stone pillars carved with pack symbols, ancient and imposing. Beyond it, Nira could see the lights of the main settlement, could smell hundreds of wolves gathered for the summit, the scent of power and politics thick in the air. Last chance to turn back, Marcus said quietly, though they both knew he didn't mean it. Naira looked at the rogues around her, at Marcus with his gray hair and warrior scars, at Sarah with her burns and fierce loyalty, at Garrett limping but unbowed, at Finn with his wild eyes, at all the others who'd chosen to follow her into what might be their deaths. We don't turn back, she said. Not ever again. They crossed the border together. It took less than 5 minutes for the alarm to sound. Howls erupted from the watch posts stationed along the border. Enforcers appeared from seemingly nowhere, weapons drawn, forming a defensive line between the rogues and the settlement proper. Professional. Coordinated. Ready for violence. That's far enough. The lead enforcer, someone Naira didn't recognize, young and eager, raised his hand in a stop gesture. Rogues aren't permitted in pack territory. Turn back now or face immediate execution under territorial law. We're here for the summit, Nira called out. She stepped forward from the group, letting them see her clearly in the fading light. We're here to address the Alpha King and the assembled Alphas. Recognition rippled through the enforcers like a wave. Whispers started, spreading fast. That's her, the rejected Omega from the ceremony. She's supposed to be dead, died in the wasteland. Look at her. That's not Omega anymore. Look at her eyes. The lead enforcer recovered his composure, though his hand tightened on his weapon. The summit is for pack alphas only. Recognized leaders of established territories. You have no right. I have every right. Naira let her power rise just slightly, felt it flood the space around her, felt the enforcer's wolves respond with confusion as their instincts couldn't categorize what she was. Not Omega submission, not alpha dominance, something else entirely. I'm here to challenge the system that rejected me, to prove that the hierarchy you've built your lives on is broken, rotten, ready to fall. Stand down! The voice came from behind the enforcer line. The crowd parted and Toms appeared, looking older and more tired than when Naira had seen him in the wasteland months ago. New lines marked his face. Naira, please, don't do this. Whatever you're planning, I have to. He'll kill you, in front of everyone, in front of all the alphas from every territory. They'll applaud him for it. Is that what you want? To die for nothing? What I want, Nira said clearly, making sure every enforcer heard, is for every Omega and every pack to see that we don't have to accept what we're given, that we can fight back, that rejection doesn't have to be the end, it can be the beginning. Tomas closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. Then I can't stop you. None of us can.
It's your death to choose. He turned to the enforcers. Let them through. Let them face whatever comes. The Alpha King will want to handle this personally. The enforcers looked uncertain but stepped aside, creating a path. Naira and her rogues walked into Frostfang Ridge. The settlement was massive, carved from stone and timber over generations, built to house thousands. For the summit, it was overflowing. Wolves from every major pack crowded the streets, the meeting halls, the common areas. Alphas with their entourages. Warriors. Advisors. Omegas serving them quietly. They all stopped and stared as Naira's group passed. The rogues moved in tight formation, protecting Naira in the center like she was precious. But she could feel the stares, could hear the whispers spreading like wildfire through dry grass. Is that the Hale girl? The one who was rejected? Can't be. She died in the wasteland. Everyone knows that. Look at her eyes. Look at how she moves. That's not the same Omega. What's she doing here? This is suicide. They reached the great hall where the summit was being held. The doors were massive oak, ancient and imposing, carved with scenes of pack history, stretching back centuries, flanked by elite guards who tensed visibly as Naira approached. The summit is in session, one guard said, his hand moving to his weapon. You can't. Naira didn't slow down. She pushed the doors open with both hands, let them slam against the walls with a sound like thunder echoing through stone corridors. The great hall fell silent. Hundreds of wolves, alphas from every major pack, their advisors and warriors and mates, all gathered around a massive circular table where treaties were signed and power was distributed, where the hierarchy was reinforced year after year, and at the head of that table, sitting on a throne carved from a single piece of black stone, was Kaelin Drake. Next to him, wearing ceremonial furs and a mating band of silver and sapphire, was Mira. She looked even more beautiful than Naira remembered, polished and perfect and utterly confident. Kaelin's eyes locked on Naira. For just a second, so brief she almost missed it, she saw shock cross his face, raw and unguarded. Then it was gone, replaced by cold fury that made the temperature in the room seem to drop. Naira Hale, he said, his voice carrying across the silent hall with the weight of absolute authority. You were banished from Packlands. Your presence here is a direct violation of territorial law that carries a death sentence. Immediate. No trial. Then execute me, Naira said. She walked forward, her rogues spreading out behind her in a loose semicircle. In front of all these alphas. In front of your new mate. In front of everyone. Show them all how the great Alpha King deals with Omegas who refuse to die quietly in the wasteland where you dumped them. Murmurs erupted around the room, shocked whispers. Kaelin's hand tightened on the armrest of his throne hard enough that the stone cracked under his fingers. Mira leaned close to him, whispered something Naira couldn't hear. Her expression was satisfied, almost smug. Kaelin stood. The movement silenced the room instantly, like someone had cut all sound. You think you can come here and challenge me? His power rolled out, massive and overwhelming. Every wolf in the room felt it, felt the weight of his dominance pressing down like physical force. Omegas in the shadows dropped to their knees automatically. Even some betas struggled to stay standing. You're nothing, Naira. An Omega with delusions of strength. I rejected you because you were weak, because you would have made me weak, would have diluted my bloodline with your inferior genetics. Then prove it. Naira let her own power rise to meet his, felt the way it made the room's energy shift, felt wolves gasp as they realized she wasn't submitting, wasn't bowing, was meeting his dominance with something equally strong. Fight me. Right here. Right now. In front of all these witnesses. Show all these alphas that I'm as weak as you claim. That rejecting me was the right choice. Alphas don't fight Omegas, Mira said sharply, her voice cutting. It's beneath their dignity, beneath their station. I'm not Omega anymore. Naira's voice cut through the hall like a blade. I'm not Alpha either. I'm what happens when your broken system rejects someone strong enough to survive it. I'm the consequence of your hierarchy, the price of your cruelty. She looked around at all the assembled alphas, at the Omegas serving them, standing quietly in the shadows with trays and downcast eyes, at the Deltas and Betas who filled the middle ranks, trapped between submission and power. How many of you have rejected mates? She asked the alphas. How many of you have cast out wolves for being inconvenient? For not fitting the perfect image of what you wanted? For having the wrong bloodline or the wrong rank or just the wrong face? No one answered, but she could see it in their expressions. The guilt, the recognition, the uncomfortable shifting. I survived what should have killed me, Nira continued. Survived rejection, survived the wasteland, survived your hunting parties sent to drag me back or end me. And I'm not the only one. There are wolves in every pack who've been crushed by this system, who've been told they're worthless because their rank isn't high enough, because they weren't born to the right family, who've been rejected, abused, discarded like trash. She took another step toward Kaylin. The rogues moved with her, a unified force. So fight me. Prove that I'm wrong. Prove that the hierarchy works. That power should be determined by birth rather than by who's strong enough to survive. Who's willing to fight for what they believe in? Kaylin's expression was murderous. You want to fight? Fine. I'll show these alphas exactly what happens to omegas who forget their place, who think they can challenge centuries of tradition. He shifted. The transformation was instant, controlled, practiced over decades. His wolf form was massive, easily twice Naira's size, black as midnight with those same ice-gray eyes burning like cold fire. Built for dominance, for crushing anything that challenged him. Scars crossed his hide from 100 battles won. Around the room, wolves backed away, giving them space, creating an arena. Naira shifted too. Her wolf form had changed over the months in the wasteland, refined by survival and combat and the strange power that had settled in her bones. Leaner, faster, with fur that was almost black and those silver markings along her spine that seemed to glow in the hall's torchlight. They circled each other in the center of the great hall. Every eye in the room was on them. Every omega watching from the shadows held their breath. Every alpha leaned forward, hungry for blood. This was it, the moment everything changed, or the moment Naira died and proved them all right. Kaylin lunged first, expecting to end it quickly, to crush her in seconds and reassert his dominance. But Naira wasn't there anymore. She'd learned to read attacks, to move before they landed. Marcus's training, Sarah's dirty tricks, Garrett's endurance lessons, all of it came together. She dodged, twisted with inhuman speed, raked her claws across his flank. First blood, dark and hot on the stone floor. Kaylin roared and spun, faster than something his size should move. Caught her with a paw that sent her sliding across the polished stone floor, claws scrabbling for purchase. But she rolled with it, came up already moving. Used his size against him like Marcus taught, staying inside his reach where his massive power couldn't build momentum. They fought like the world was ending. Naira used everything she'd learned, every dirty trick, every weakness Marcus had shown her how to exploit. Every ounce of endurance Garrett had drilled into her until she thought she'd die. But Kaylin was stronger, more experienced, built for this in ways she'd never be. A blow caught her ribs. She felt them crack, felt the air punch out of her lungs, tasted blood. Get up. Get up, or everything you've built means nothing. All those omegas watching. Get up. She forced herself up, drove forward despite the pain, went for his throat, committed fully. Kaylin caught her mid-leap, his jaws closed on her shoulder, crushing with enough force to pulverize bone. She felt her foreleg go numb, felt tendons tear. He threw her across the room like she weighed nothing. She hit the wall hard enough to crack stone, hard enough to leave a crater. For a moment, Naira couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The pain was everywhere, complete, absolute. Kaylin shifted back to human, stood over her broken body, not even breathing hard, barely scratched. This is what happens, he said loudly, addressing the room full of alphas. This is what happens to wolves who challenge the natural order, who think they can rise above their station through stubbornness and luck. Power comes from bloodlines, from genetics, from centuries of careful selection, not from survival, not from desperation. Naira tried to shift back, tried to speak, but her body wouldn't obey. Too broken, too damaged. No, not like this. Not after everything, not after surviving the wasteland, after building something new. Not. Kaylin turned his back on her, started walking back to his throne, back to Mira, who was smiling like she'd won. And that's when Naira felt it. The bond wound in her chest, the place where their connection had been torn apart months ago, suddenly flared to life. Not healing, not reforming the bond, evolving into something entirely new. The power she'd been building, The transformed bond energy that had been growing stronger day by day suddenly crystallized, became something solid, something real, something the world had never seen before. Naira pushed herself up. Her broken bones shifted, healed in seconds with cracks that echoed through the silent hall. The blood stopped flowing. Her torn shoulder knit itself back together. She shifted back to human and stood. The room went dead silent.
Because Naira was glowing. Actually glowing with a silver light that seemed to come from inside her skin, from her bones, from her very soul. What? Kalen turned, and for the first time in his life, she saw real fear in his eyes. That's impossible. That kind of power doesn't exist. You rejected me, Naira said. Her voice echoed with something beyond normal sound, resonated with power that made the stones tremble. You severed the bond between us. But bonds that strong don't just disappear, Kalen. You taught me that when you broke me. The power had to go somewhere. She took a step forward. The silver light intensified, filled the hall.
It went into me, all of it. Everything that should have been shared between an Omega and the strongest Alpha in history. And it changed me into something your hierarchy has no name for, something you can't categorize, can't control. She let her full power explode outward. Every wolf in the room dropped to their knees. Every single one, including Kalen Drake. The Alpha King's knees hit the stone floor with a sound that echoed through the great hall like a death knell. His face twisted, shock, fury, and something he'd probably never felt before. Fear. Around the room, hundreds of wolves knelt. Alphas who ruled territories, warriors who'd killed in a dozen wars, advisors who'd shaped policy for decades. All on their knees. Not from choice. From compulsion, from power so overwhelming their wolves couldn't resist. Naira stood in the center of it all, silver light pouring from her skin, and felt the weight of what she'd become.
Impossible, someone whispered. One of the older alphas from the eastern territories, his voice cracking. No Omega has ever... This can't... I'm not Omega. Naira's voice resonated with that strange double tone, human and something else woven together. Not anymore. Maybe I never was. Maybe the hierarchy you built was always a lie and you just never had anyone survive long enough to prove it. She looked at Kalen, still on his knees, fighting against her power with everything he had. Veins stood out on his neck. His hands were clenched so tight his knuckles had gone white.
You said I was weak, Naira said. Each word landed like a hammer. Said I would have diluted your bloodline, made you less. But the bond knew better, didn't it? The bond connected us because we were matched, equal. And when you severed that connection, she pulled the power back slightly, just enough that some wolves could breathe again, could move their heads, could look around at each other in confusion and terror. You gave me everything that would have been ours, all the power meant for both of us. You made me this. She gestured at herself, at the silver light. This is your doing, Kalen. Your creation. I'm what happens when you throw away something powerful because it came in the wrong package. Mira was on her knees beside the throne, her perfect face contorted with rage. You're using dark magic, blood magic. This isn't natural power, it's bond power. The voice came from the back of the hall, old, creaking with age. Everyone turned to look. An ancient female stepped forward from the shadows where the servants stood. She had to be 80 at least, maybe older, with white hair and skin like weathered leather. Naira didn't recognize her, but from the way other wolves reacted, she was someone important. Elder Shasa? Kalen's voice was strained, still fighting against Naira's dominance. What are you... I presided over your rejection ceremony, the old woman said. She walked slowly toward the center of the hall, leaning on a carved staff. Watched you sever a true bond because it didn't fit your political needs. I warned you there would be consequences. You didn't listen. She stopped a few feet from Naira, studying her with eyes that had seen too much. Bond power doesn't disappear when a connection is severed. It has to go somewhere. Usually it dissipates, bleeds off into the earth over months or years. But when a bond is this strong, between wolves this powerful, and it's rejected this violently, she gestured at Naira. This is the result. All that combined power, all that potential poured into one vessel instead of two. Then remove it, Mira said desperately. You're an elder. You have the knowledge. Take it away from her. And what? Give it back to Kalen? Elder Shasa laughed, harsh and bitter. It doesn't work that way, girl. The power has adapted, changed. It's hers now, woven into every cell. You can't extract it without killing her, and even then it wouldn't transfer. It would just die with her. Silence fell across the hall. Nira could feel hundreds of minds racing, calculating what this meant, what she could do with this power, whether she could be killed or controlled or negotiated with. She released her hold completely, let the wolves stand. Most did, gasping and shaking. A few stayed down, either too shocked or too smart to rise. Kalen stood slowly, his face a mask of controlled fury. But he didn't move toward her, didn't attack. Good. He was learning. Here's what's going to happen, Nira said. She kept her voice level, calm. The voice of someone stating facts, not making threats. I'm not here to kill anyone. Not here to take territories or declare myself some kind of supreme alpha. That would just be replacing one broken system with another. She turned slowly, making eye contact with as many alphas as she could. I'm here to prove that your hierarchy is failing. That power doesn't come from bloodlines or genetics or centuries of tradition. It comes from strength, from will, from refusing to accept that your birth determines your worth. You're calling for chaos, an alpha from the Northern Territories said. He was younger, maybe 40, with intelligent eyes. If omegas stop accepting their place, if deltas start challenging betas, if the structure breaks down, we'll have civil war. Pack will turn on pack. Everything we've built will burn. Maybe it needs to burn. Marcus stepped forward from the group of rogues. Maybe what you've built is rotten. Maybe it's time for something new. And what exactly are you proposing? Kalen's voice was ice. He'd recovered his composure, his alpha mask back in place. That we just abandon millennia of pack law? Let every omega with a grudge challenge their superiors? Watch our society collapse into anarchy? I'm proposing choice, Nira said. I'm proposing that wolves get to prove themselves based on who they are, not what they were born as. That omegas who are strong enough can rise. That alphas who abuse their power can fall. That's what we already have, Mira said. Her voice dripped contempt. Any wolf can challenge their superior through formal combat. The strong rise, the weak fall. You're not proposing anything new. You're just bitter about being weak. Nira smiled. It wasn't a kind expression. Is that what you think happened here? That I'm weak? She let a fraction of her power out again. Just a fraction. Mira stumbled backward, her face going pale. Formal challenges require permission from your superior, Nira continued. Require them to accept. How many omegas have asked to challenge and been denied? How many have been punished just for asking? The system isn't based on strength, it's based on control, on making sure the wolves on top stay on top. So what do you want? Kalen's voice was tight. You've made your demonstration, showed everyone you have power. What now? Do you challenge me for leadership of Frostfang Ridge? Try to take my throne? No? The word seemed to surprise everyone, including Kalen. I don't want your throne. Don't want to rule packs or make laws or play politics. I want you to acknowledge what happened, what you did. I acknowledged it months ago when I rejected you. You acknowledged I wasn't good enough for you. That's different from acknowledging the truth. Nira took a step closer to him. The silver light had faded from her skin, but the power was still there, coiled and ready. Acknowledge that the bond was real, that rejecting me was political, not because I was weak, that you destroyed something genuine because it didn't fit your image. Kalen's jaw clenched. Never. Then I'll stay here until you do. Camp outside your borders with my rogues. Every omega who wants to leave their pack and join us, I'll take them. Every wolf who's tired of bowing to alphas who don't deserve respect, they're welcome. And we'll build something new right on your doorstep. Let's see how long your perfect hierarchy lasts when wolves have a choice. Murmurs erupted around the hall, worried whispers, calculating looks. You're threatening rebellion, an alpha said. Mass desertion. That's an act of war. No, Nira said. That's freedom. War would be me using this power to force change, to crush packs that resist. I'm offering choice. If your wolves are happy, if your hierarchy is working, they'll stay. If not, they have somewhere else to go. This is insane, Mira said. She looked at Kalen desperately. You can't let her do this. She's undermining everything. Kill her, right now, before this spreads. Kalen stared at Naira for a long moment. His expression was unreadable.
I could, he said quietly. I could order every alpha in this room to attack, overwhelm you with numbers. You're powerful, but you're still one wolf. You'd die. Probably, Naira agreed. But what would that prove? That you need an army to defeat one rejected Omega? That your power only works when you have overwhelming force? Every Omega watching would know you were scared, would know I was right. She could see the calculation in his eyes, the political math. And my rogues would scatter, she continued. Spread the story. Make me a martyr. Every discontented wolf in every pack would hear about how the great Alpha King needed hundreds of warriors to kill one Omega who dared to stand against him. How would that look? Kalen's hands clenched into fists. You've trapped me, he said. Not an admission, an accusation. No, you trapped yourself when you rejected a true bond for politics. I'm just the consequence. Elder Shasa's laugh cut through the tension. The girl's smarter than you gave her credit for, Kalen. She's not fighting you with strength. She's fighting you with truth. And truth is harder to kill than wolves. Whose side are you on? Mira demanded. I'm on the side of the bond laws, the elder said. Have been for 60 years. Kalen violated those laws when he rejected a true mate. The consequences are his to bear. She looked at Naira, though I didn't expect the consequences to be quite this dramatic. One of the alphas from the Southern Territories stood. He was massive, scarred, old enough to have fought in the territorial wars. I have a question for the Omega. Naira, she corrected. My name is Naira. Naira, then. You say you want choice, that you'll take any wolf who wants to leave their pack. But what are you offering them? The wasteland is barely survivable. What life can you give them that's better than what they have? It was a fair question. Naira had been expecting it. Dignity, she said simply. Respect. The chance to be valued for who they are, not what rank they were born to. And yes, the wasteland is harsh, but we've survived there for months now, built shelters, established hunting grounds. We're not thriving yet, but we're alive, and we're free. Freedom doesn't fill empty bellies, another alpha said. Neither does submission if your alpha decides you're not worth feeding, Marcus said. I've seen it happen. Omegas starved because they displeased their superiors. Deltas worked to death because they were expendable. Freedom might come with an empty belly, but at least it comes with choice. More murmurs. Nira could see some wolves nodding. Others looked scandalized, and Omega stepped forward from the shadows. Young, maybe 19, with the look of someone who'd been beaten down too many times. Is it true? Her voice was barely audible. That you'll take anyone? That we don't have to stay in our packs? It's true, Nira said gently. Any wolf who wants to leave, you're welcome. We won't turn anyone away. Get back in line, an alpha barked. The Omega flinched and retreated, but the damage was done. The question had been asked publicly. Other Omegas were looking at each other, whispering. This is over, Kalen said loudly. The summit is adjourned. Naira hail. He paused, seemed to wrestle with something internal, and her rogues will be given safe passage out of pack territory. But if you attempt to recruit from established packs, if you encourage desertion, I will consider it an act of war. I won't recruit, Naira said. I'll just exist. Wolves can make their own choices about whether to stay or go. That's the same thing. No, recruiting is active persuasion. I'm just offering an alternative. There's a difference. Kalen looked like he wanted to argue. Instead, he turned and walked out of the great hall, his posture rigid. Mira followed after shooting Naira a look of pure hatred. The other alphas began filtering out slowly. Some shot curious glances at Naira. Some looked hostile. A few looked thoughtful. When most had gone, Elder Shasa approached Naira again. That was risky, she said. Kalen could have ordered your death. Nearly did, from what I could see. But he didn't. No. Because you're right, killing you would make things worse for him politically. You've made yourself more dangerous dead than alive. The elder's expression was approving. Clever, ruthless, but clever. I don't want to be ruthless. I just want justice, revenge, change. Elder Shasa shook her head. Doesn't matter what you call it. You've started something that can't be stopped now. Wolves will leave their packs. Alphas will panic. Violence will follow. Are you prepared for that? Nira thought about Lena and all those names on the fabric. about the Omegas in this very hall who'd looked at her with hope, about her mother, throat torn out for questioning authority. "Yes," she said, "I'm prepared."
The elder studied her for a long moment.
"Then you're braver than I thought, or more foolish. Time will tell which."
She turned to leave, then paused. "The bond power you carry, it's unique, unprecedented, but it's not unlimited. Use it too much and it will burn you out, kill you from the inside. Be careful how often you display that silver light." "How do you know that?" "Because I've studied bond magic my entire life, and power always has a price." Elder Shasa left, her staff clicking against the stone. Marcus approached with the other rogues. "Well, that was dramatic." "Did it work?" Naira asked. She felt suddenly exhausted, drained from the confrontation and the power display. "Did we accomplish anything?" "You stayed alive," Sarah said. "That's not nothing." "And you showed every wolf here that Omegas can be powerful," Garrett added. "That the hierarchy isn't set in stone. That's huge." But Kalen didn't acknowledge the rejection was wrong, didn't admit anything. "He didn't have to," Marcus said. "Everyone in that hall saw him on his knees, saw him unable to resist your power. That's admission enough. You broke his image of invincibility." Finn was grinning. "Did you see the Alpha's faces? They're terrified. This changes everything. Maybe. Or maybe it just started a war that would get them all killed." Nira pushed the doubt away. She'd committed to this path. No turning back now. They left the Great Hall and found the settlement in chaos. Wolves everywhere, talking in urgent whispers. Enforcers trying to maintain order. Omegas huddled in groups, shooting furtive glances toward Naira and her rogues. As they walked toward the settlement's edge, a figure stepped out from between buildings. "Tomas." "I need to talk to you," he said quietly. "Alone?" Nira nodded to Marcus. "Wait for me at the border." The rogues moved off, leaving Naira and Tomas in the shadows between two structures. "That was stupid," Tomas said without preamble. "Incredibly, monumentally stupid." "Probably. You made an enemy of every alpha in every territory. They see you as a threat to their power, to the entire system." "Good. They should." Tomas ran a hand through his hair. "I'm trying to help you, Nira. Trying to make you understand the danger you're in. I understand perfectly, but what was I supposed to do? Spend my life hiding in the wasteland? Pretend the hierarchy isn't crushing thousands of wolves? Let things continue as they are." "Yes," Tomas said bluntly. "Because the alternative is chaos, war, death. You think you're saving Omegas, but you're putting them in more danger. Alphas who feel threatened will crack down harder, make examples of anyone who questions authority. Then we fight back. With what? 40 rogues against organized packs? Against thousands of warriors? With hope," Naira said. "With the knowledge that change is possible. With every Omega who's brave enough to walk away from abuse and join us. Numbers will grow. And if they don't? If you end up with 100 refugees starving in the wasteland while packs unite against you?" Nira didn't have an answer for that. Tomas sighed. "I'm not saying you're wrong about the system. I'm saying your solution will get people killed, but you're not going to listen to me, are you?" "No." "Didn't think so." He pulled something from his jacket, a small leather pouch. "Then take this. Information from inside Frostfang Ridge. Council discussions, alpha movements, planned responses to your group. Updates every week if you send someone to the eastern border marker at dawn." Nira stared at the pouch. "Why are you helping me?" "Because someone has to. Because you're right that the system is broken, even if I think your methods are insane. And because..." He paused. "Because I was there when Kalen rejected you. I saw what it did to you. I didn't stop it, didn't speak up. This is me trying to make that right. You could be executed if they find out you're feeding me information." "I know, but I'm an enforcer. I'm supposed to protect wolves, not oppress them. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that." Thomas pressed the pouch into her hands. "Be careful, Nira, and try not to get all your people killed." He disappeared back into the settlement before she could respond. Nira rejoined her rogues at the border. They crossed back into neutral territory as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. "What did Tomas want?" Marcus asked. Nira showed him the pouch. "Intelligence. He's going to spy for us." Marcus's eyebrows rose. Unexpected. Useful, but unexpected. They made camp a few miles from the border. Too wired to sleep, Naira sat by the fire while the others rested. Sarah joined her. "You're thinking too much. I can hear it from here. Just wondering if I did the right thing. If this will actually help or just make things worse."
Little bit of both, probably. Sarah poked the fire with a stick. But you gave those Omegas hope. That's worth something. Worth a lot, actually. Is it worth the war that might come? Don't know. Ask me after we've survived it. Sarah's scarred face softened slightly. You did good today, Naira. Stood up to the most powerful alpha in the territories and lived. Made him kneel. That's legend material. I don't want to be a legend, just want
To fix everything? Sarah laughed. Too late for that. You're a symbol now whether you want to be or not. Every Omega's hope, every Alpha's nightmare. Better get used to it. Over the next week, 3 Omegas arrived at their wasteland camp. Then 7 more. Then 15, all refugees from different packs, all with stories of abuse, rejection, cruelty, all desperate for the alternative Nira had promised. Marcus organized them, established protocols for integrating new arrivals. Hunters taught them to find food. Warriors gave them basic combat training. Sarah showed them how to build proper shelters. The camp grew, and with it, Nira's responsibility. She found herself making decisions about everything: where to hunt, how to distribute resources, who would scout which territories. It was exhausting in ways she hadn't anticipated. This is what leadership feels like, Marcus said one evening. They were reviewing maps, planning expansion routes. The weight of every life depending on your choices. I hate it. Good leaders usually do. It's the ones who love power you have to worry about. 2 weeks after the summit, Naira was checking the southern border when she found her. An Omega, maybe 16, collapsed in the snow. Her back was covered in whip marks, fresh enough to still be bleeding. Nira carried her back to camp. Sarah treated the wounds while the girl cried. "My Alpha," she finally managed to say. "He said I was spreading sedition, talking about choice, about leaving. He made an example of me, whipped me in front of the whole pack, then dumped me outside the territory. Said if I wanted to join the rogues so badly, I could die trying to reach them." Her name was Kira. She was the 30th Omega to join them. She wouldn't be the last. But as Nira held the girl while she sobbed, she understood what Tomas had meant. Her revolution was saving some wolves and getting others hurt in the process. The question was whether the cost was worth the change. That night, lying in her cave while the camp slept around her, Nira made a decision. She couldn't just react anymore. Couldn't just survive and hope things got better. If she was going to lead these wolves, if she was going to challenge the entire pack system, she needed a real plan. Not just resistance, revolution. The next morning, she gathered her core group: Marcus, Sarah, Garrett, Finn, and a few others who'd proven themselves capable. "We need to be strategic," she said. "Need to think long term. It's not enough to just take in refugees. We need to build something sustainable, something that can actually compete with the pack system." "What are you proposing?" Marcus asked. Nira spread out the maps Tomas had provided. "We expand, claim more territory, establish multiple camps so we're not all in one vulnerable location, build alliances with other rogue groups, create trade networks, become self-sufficient enough that we're not just surviving, we're thriving." "That's ambitious," Sarah said. "Also dangerous. The bigger we get, the more threatened the packs will feel. They already feel threatened. Might as well give them a real reason." Nira traced routes on the map. "We show every oppressed wolf in every territory that there's an alternative, that you can leave and have a real life, not just barely surviving in the wasteland." Garrett grinned. "I like it. Ambitious, probably impossible, but I like it." "It'll take years," Marcus warned, "and we'll face resistance every step of the way. Packs won't just let us build a rival society on their borders." "I know," Nira said, "but we have something they don't. We have wolves who chose to be here, who believe in what we're building. That's powerful, maybe powerful enough." She looked around at her core group. "So, are we doing this? Are we really trying to change the world?" They looked at each other, then one by one, they nodded. "We're in," Marcus said. "All the way." Nira felt something settle in her chest. Not quite hope, not quite certainty, but something close to both. She'd started this wanting revenge, wanting to prove Kaylin wrong, Now she wanted something bigger. She wanted to burn the hierarchy to the ground and build something better from the ashes. And she was just getting started. 6 months changed everything. The single camp became 5 scattered across the wasteland's most defensible positions. The 30 refugees became 217. Hunters established routes that brought in enough game to feed everyone. Scouts mapped every territorial border within 100 miles. Builders, mostly deltas who'd worked construction in their old packs, erected permanent structures that could withstand the brutal winter coming. Nira barely slept. Every morning brought new problems. Food shortages in the western camp, disputes between refugees from rival packs who brought old grudges with them, illness spreading through the northern settlement, reports of pack enforcers getting bolder, patrolling closer to rogue territory. "You're going to burn out," Sarah said one night, finding Nira still awake at 3 a.m, reviewing supply reports by firelight. "Even you have limits. Can't afford limits. Too many wolves depending on you to be functional, which you won't be if you collapse from exhaustion." Sarah physically took the reports from Nira's hands. "Sleep. That's an order from your second-in-command." "I didn't appoint a second-in-command." "You didn't have to. Someone needed to keep you from killing yourself with responsibility, so I volunteered." Sarah's scarred face was stern. 4 hours. Minimum. Or I'm telling Marcus you're being stupid again." Nira wanted to argue. Instead, she found herself stumbling to her sleeping furs and passing out immediately. She woke 6 hours later to voices outside her cave. "Can't keep doing this. We're stretched too thin." That was Garrett, frustrated. "Then we stop accepting new arrivals." A voice Nira didn't recognize, one of the newer refugees maybe. "Until desperate wolves were too full? Send them back to packs that will punish them for trying to leave?" Marcus, patient but firm. "That's not who we are." Nira emerged to find a dozen of her core group gathered around a fire. They looked tired, stressed, the weight of rapid growth showing on all their faces. "What's the crisis this time?" she asked. "Same crisis as always," Garrett said. "Too many mouths, not enough food. The hunting grounds near the eastern camp are depleted. We need to expand farther into unclaimed territory." "Which borders Silver Pine Packlands," Finn added. "They've already warned us twice about crossing their boundaries." "So we negotiate," Nira said. "Offer them something in exchange for hunting rights." "What could we possibly offer that a pack wants?" Sarah asked. Nira thought about Tomas's intelligence reports, about the information she'd been gathering for months. "Protection, defense? We have warriors now, rogues who know how to fight. Packs have internal problems. Rogues they can't catch. Border disputes with neighbors. We could offer our services." Marcus frowned. "You want to turn us into mercenaries?" "I want to turn us into a legitimate force they have to acknowledge. Right now, we're just refugees they tolerate. If we're useful, we're harder to dismiss, harder to destroy." The group exchanged looks. "It could work," Garrett said slowly. "Silver Pine's been having problems with raiders from the north. If we help them, they might grant us permanent hunting rights, maybe even trade agreements." Marcus was nodding now, seeing it. "It's risky. If we get involved in pack politics, we lose our neutrality." "We were never neutral," Nira said. "We're a threat to the entire system just by existing. Might as well make ourselves a useful threat." They sent envoys to Silver Pine Pack that afternoon. The response came 3 days later. The Alpha, an older female named Saskia, who'd held her territory for 20 years, agreed to meet. Nira took Marcus and Sarah, left Garrett in charge of the main camp with strict instructions not to start any wars while she was gone. Silver Pine settlement was smaller than Frostfang Ridge, but well defended. Walls of sharpened timber, guard towers, organized patrols. They'd learned from the territorial wars. Alpha Saskia received them in a hall that smelled of pine and old smoke. She was smaller than Nira expected, barely 5.5 feet, but the power radiating from her was immense. This was a wolf who'd held territory through strength and cunning in equal measure. "Nira hail!" Saskia's voice was rough, smoky. The Omega who made Kaelin Drake kneel. I wondered if the stories were exaggerated. "They probably are," Nira said. "Stories always grow in the telling." Modest? Interesting? Saskia gestured to seats around a low table. "Your envoy said you wanted to discuss an arrangement. I'm listening." Nira laid out the proposal. Protection services in exchange for hunting rights and limited trade.
Her warriors would help with Silverpine's raider problem. In return, rogues could hunt in agreed-upon zones and purchase supplies at fair prices. Saskia listened without interrupting. When Nira finished, the alpha was quiet for a long moment. "You're asking me to legitimize you," she finally said. "To acknowledge your group as something other than displaced rogues. To treat you like a pack. We're not a pack, we don't operate on hierarchy, but yes, we're asking for recognition. For a place in the world that isn't just outcasts waiting to die. And if I refuse? Then we keep hunting where we can and hoping we don't starve when winter hits. But we'll survive. We always do." Saskia smiled. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't hostile either. "I like you, Naira Hale. You don't grovel. Don't pretend to be anything other than what you are." She stood, paced to a window overlooking her territory. "The raiders have been a problem for 2 years. They strike fast, take food and supplies, disappear before we can organize pursuit. My enforcers are good at defense, not so good at hunting ghost. Our people are mostly outcasts and rebels. We know how rogues think, how they move. We can find them. And if you do, if you're successful, then we've proven we're useful, worth keeping alive, worth working with instead of against." Saskia turned back to face her. "You're building something unprecedented, a society outside pack structure. The other alphas are watching, waiting to see if you fail or if you become a real threat. What about you? What do you think?" "I think the pack system has flaws. Always has. I think we've crushed a lot of capable wolves because they didn't fit our molds. And I think..." Saskia paused, choosing words carefully. "I think someone challenging that system is overdue, even if it makes everyone uncomfortable." She extended her hand. "You have a deal. 3 months. Your warriors help us with the raider problem. In exchange, hunting rights in the Northeastern Territory and trade at standard pack rates. After 3 months, we reassess." Nira shook her hand. "Thank you, Alpha Saskia. Don't thank me yet. If you fail, the deal's void, and you're back to scraping by. And if word gets out, I'm working with rogues." Saskia's expression hardened. "Some alphas will see it as betrayal. You might be dragging me into your war. Then we'd better not fail." The raider camp took 2 weeks to find. Finn led the tracking team. Turned out his years of evading pack enforcers made him excellent at thinking like fugitives. They found the raiders holed up in a canyon system 30 miles north of Silverpine territory. 18 rogues, all male, all violent enough to have been exiled for serious crimes. "We could just kill them," Garrett said, studying the canyon from their vantage point. "Solve the problem permanently." "No." Naira's voice was firm. "We're not executioners. We offer them the same choice we give everyone. Join us or leave the territory. If they fight, we fight back. But we don't start with violence. They're raiders, Naira. They won't just surrender because we ask nicely. Then we make the ask less nice." They went in at dawn. 20 of Naira's best fighters, all trained by Marcus and hardened by wasteland survival. They surrounded the canyon camp while most of the raiders still slept. Naira walked in alone. The sentry spotted her immediately. "Who the hell are..." She let her power flare, just enough to make him drop his weapon. "Get your leader. Tell him Naira Hale wants to talk." 5 minutes later, she stood facing a massive wolf in human form, scarred, wild-eyed, smelling of violence and unwashed fur. "You're the Omega everyone's talking about," he said. Not a question. "The one who thinks she's building a pack out of trash." Something like that. "You've been raiding Silverpine Pack. That's going to stop." He laughed. "Or what? You'll make me kneel like you did Kaylin Drake?" "I don't bow to anyone, Princess, especially not Omegas pretending to be Alphas." "I'm not pretending anything, and I'm not asking you to bow. I'm giving you options." Nira kept her voice level. "First option, leave this territory. Go raid somewhere else. We won't follow, won't hunt you, just gone. And second, join us. We're building something new, a place for wolves the packs threw away. You'd have to follow some basic rules. No raiding our allies, no attacking other rogues without cause. But you'd have food, shelter, purpose." "Purpose," the raider spat. "I've got purpose. Taking from packs that threw me out. Making them bleed for what they did." "That's revenge, not purpose." Nira took a step closer. "How long do you think you'll last? Eventually Silverpine will get lucky. Kill you all? or capture you, execute you publicly as a warning, or you'll starve when game runs out, or winter will freeze you to death. You're living on borrowed time. Better than living on my knees. We don't kneel. We stand together. We fight together. We survive together. Naira let her power rise slightly.
Third option. You refuse both choices and we fight. Right now. My 20 warriors against your 18. Winner takes everything. You win, we leave, and you keep raiding. We win, you're done. Permanently. The raider studied her for a long moment. Behind him, his group was stirring, coming to see what was happening. You're serious? Completely. He grinned. It was feral, vicious. I've always wondered if the stories were true. If you really made Kaylin kneel. Guess I'm about to find out. The fight was brutal but short. Marcus's training showed. Naira's fighters moved as a unit, coordinated and disciplined. The raiders were stronger individually, but they fought like scattered wolves. No teamwork, no strategy. 10 minutes in, half the raiders were down. Injured but alive. Naira's people aimed to disable, not kill.
The leader fought Naira directly. He was strong, experienced, vicious, but she'd spent 6 months training every day. Fought opponents Marcus brought in specifically to challenge her, learned to use her speed and power in combination. She put him down hard, her teeth at his throat, her power pressing down until he couldn't move. Yield, she said. For a moment she thought he'd refuse, choose death over surrender. Then he shifted back to human. Yield, you win. Naira released him, stepped back. So, what's your choice? Leave or join? He sat up slowly, blood running from a dozen cuts. You really don't kill defeated opponents? Not unless they force me to. That's, He laughed, pained and genuine. That's stupid. Dangerously stupid. But I respect it. He looked at his raiders, the ones still conscious. What do you think, boys? Should we try this standing together thing? You're the boss, Tarak. Not anymore, apparently. Tarak looked back at Naira. We'll join, but I'm not bowing to you, not calling you alpha or leader or any of that pack hierarchy shit. I don't want you to. I want you to contribute, hunt, fight when needed, help build what we're creating. And what are we creating exactly? Naira smiled. Something better, or we die trying. Word of the raiders' integration spread fast. Some of Naira's people weren't happy about it, didn't trust wolves who'd been violent enough for exile. But Marcus backed her decision, and gradually the tension eased. Tarak's group brought skills the rogues needed. They knew territory outside Packlands, knew how to fight in ways that weren't formal or honorable, but were devastatingly effective, knew how to survive on nothing. More importantly, they brought a shift in perspective. You're too soft, Tarak told Naira one night. They were planning the next phase of expansion, too worried about being better than the packs. Sometimes you need to be willing to get your hands dirty. I've killed, Naira said quietly, more than I wanted to. I know. I can see it on you, but you hesitate, still trying to be the Omega who follows rules even while you're breaking the whole system. He leaned forward. If you're going to lead this revolution, you need to accept what that means. Sometimes the moral choice is the brutal one. I'm not becoming what they are, what Kaylin is. Power without conscience. I'm not saying that. I'm saying conscience without power is just pretty words. You've got both. Use them together. It was uncomfortable advice, but not wrong. Saskia sent word 3 weeks later. The raids had stopped. Her territory was secure. The deal was working. She wants to extend the agreement, Marcus said, reading the message. 6 more months, and she's suggesting we formalize it. Written treaty, official recognition. That'll piss off other alphas, Sarah said. Good, Naira replied. Let them be pissed. Let them see that working with us is possible, that we're not just a threat, we're an alternative. Over the next 4 months, 3 more packs approached them. Smaller territories struggling with problems their traditional structures couldn't solve. Each time Naira negotiated carefully. Services for recognition. Help for legitimacy. The rogue settlement grew to 400 wolves, then 500. Then 700. They stopped being refugees and started being a society. Then the winter hit. The real winter. The kind Marcus had warned about. The kind that killed everything unprepared.
Temperatures dropped so low that water froze solid within minutes of being exposed. Snow fell in walls of white that buried shelters. Game disappeared, either dead or migrated. Wolves who ventured out unprepared didn't come back. Nira's carefully built society started dying.
"We're losing 3 wolves a day," Marcus reported. His breath came out in white clouds, even inside the insulated cave.
Mostly the newest arrivals. The ones who don't know wasteland survival. We're running out of food. Running out of fuel for fires. Running out of time. What about the packs we have agreements with? Saskia's territory is barely surviving. Everyone's rationing. They can't help us. Nira stared at the map, at the settlements marked across the wasteland, at the population numbers that kept shrinking. She'd built something unprecedented, proven the system could be challenged, and now winter was going to destroy it all. There has to be a solution, she said. There is. Sarah's voice was grim. We go to Frostfang Ridge. Ask Kalen for help. The suggestion hung in the air like poison. Absolutely not, Garrett said immediately. That's suicide. He'll use it against us. Prove we failed. That we can't survive without pack structure. He's right, Nira said. We can survive on pride? Sarah cut her off. Watch wolves freeze and starve because we're too stubborn to ask for help? That's not strength, Nira. That's stupidity. She's right, Marcus said quietly. I hate it, but she's right. Kalen has resources. Frostfang Ridge has storage facilities full of preserved food, has enough fuel to keep everyone warm. If we don't ask, we die, Sarah finished. All of us. And everything we built dies with us. Nira closed her eyes, felt the weight of 700 lives pressing down. She'd sworn she wouldn't bow to Kalen, wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her broken. But this wasn't about her anymore.
I'll go, she said.
Alone. Ask for help. See if he'll... No. Marcus shook his head. Not alone. We go together. Show him this is a unified decision, not you begging. They left the next morning. Nira, Marcus, Sarah, Garrett, and Tarak. 5 wolves making the journey through killing cold to Frostfang Ridge. It took 4 days. They lost Tarak on day 3. He fell through ice covering a hidden stream. They got him out, but the cold had done its damage. He died that night despite everything they tried. Keep moving, he'd whispered before the end. Don't let my death be for nothing. Get the help. Save the others. They buried him in the snow and kept going. Frostfang Ridge's guards almost didn't let them in. Only a direct order from Kalen himself got the gates opened. He received them in the same hall where the summit had been held, where Nira had made him kneel 6 months ago. He looked different. Older. Lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. Mira stood beside his throne, heavily pregnant. The sight made Nira's chest ache for reasons she didn't want to examine. Nira hail, Kalen said. His voice was neutral, carefully controlled. I wondered if you'd come crawling back eventually. We're not crawling. Nira forced herself to stand straight despite the exhaustion. We're asking for help, temporary aid to get through winter. We can offer... You have nothing I want. Kalen's voice was flat. Your revolution is dying. The wasteland is doing what I couldn't, eliminating the threat you posed. Why would I save you? Because 700 wolves will die if you don't, Marcus said. Most of them are Omegas and Deltas who left packs because they were abused. Because your perfect hierarchy crushed them. You can let them die and prove you were right, that they can't survive without pack structure. Or you can show that maybe there's another way. Other way? Mira laughed. They're dying because they rejected the natural order. This is what happens when Omegas pretend to be something they're not. I made you kneel, Nira said quietly, looking at Kalen. 6 months ago in this hall, I forced every wolf here to their knees with power you said I didn't have. Was that pretending? Kalen's expression darkened. You have power. I acknowledge that. But power without structure, without hierarchy, without control, it's chaos. Your people are dying because you couldn't organize them properly, because you rejected the systems that work. Our people are dying because winter is brutal and we're still learning how to survive it, Sarah said. But we learned summer, learned autumn. We'll learn winter too, if you help us get through this one. And if I do? What then? Kalen leaned forward. You rebuild, grow stronger, continue undermining pack authority.
Continue encouraging Omegas to abandon their duties. I'd be helping my enemy. Maybe, Naira said. Or maybe you'd be proving that the strong can help the weak without dominating them. That power can be used for something other than control. Isn't that what alphas are supposed to do? Protect? I protect my pack. You're not my pack. We could be? The words came out before Naira could stop them. She saw Marcus's eyes widen. A formal alliance, Frostfang Ridge and the Rogue Territories. We maintain our autonomy, our structure, but we cooperate, share resources during crisis, defend each other against external threats. Kaelin stared at her. You're asking me to legitimize you, to acknowledge your territory as equal to pack lands. I'm asking you to acknowledge reality. We exist. We're not going away. You can keep treating us as enemies, or you can work with us. Your choice. The hall was silent. Mira whispered something to Kaelin. He shook his head. They argued in low voices while Naira and her group waited. Finally, Kaelin stood. I'll make you a deal, he said. I'll provide enough food and fuel to get your people through winter. In exchange, you owe Frostfang Ridge a debt. One favor to be called in when I choose. No, Marcus said immediately. That's too open-ended. He could demand anything. Then your people freeze, Kaelin said. Those are my terms. Take them or leave. Nira looked at her companions, at Marcus, who'd believed in her from the start, at Sarah, who'd taught her to fight dirty, at Garrett, who'd been the first to bow to her authority, at the memory of Tarak dying in the snow. 700 lives. I accept, she said. Naira, no. Marcus grabbed her arm. I accept, she repeated louder. We'll take the supplies. And when you call in the favor, I'll honor it. Kaelin smiled. It wasn't kind. Smart. Hating me isn't worth letting your people die. I don't hate you, Naira said. It surprised her that it was true. I'm disappointed in you. You had the strength to change things, to make the system better. Instead, you just reinforced it because it benefited you. And you tried to tear it down because it hurt you. We're not so different. We're exactly different. I'm willing to sacrifice for my people. You're asking them to sacrifice for you. Kaelin's expression hardened. Get your supplies and get out of my territory. The supplies saved them. Carts full of preserved meat, dried vegetables, fuel for fires, enough to get 700 wolves through the worst of winter. The cost was worth it. Had to be. But Naira couldn't shake the feeling she'd just made a deal with something darker than winter. Spring came slowly. Ice melted. Green pushed through frozen ground. Game returned. Wolves who'd barely survived winter emerged from shelters looking skeletal but alive. All 700. They'd lost Tarak and 32 others during the journey and the worst weeks. But they'd survived, together. We did it, Sarah said. They stood on a ridge overlooking the main settlement. Permanent structures now, not temporary shelters. Gardens being planted, children playing. We actually survived. With Kaelin's help, Nira said. With everyone's help, including yours. Sarah put a hand on her shoulder. You made an impossible choice, saved lives. That's what matters. 2 weeks into spring, the message came. Kaelin was calling in his favor. The messenger was Tomas. He looked uncomfortable as he delivered the summons. He wants you at Frostfang Ridge in 3 days, Tomas said. Alone. Those are the terms. What does he want? Marcus demanded. I don't know. Tomas paused. He's been different since winter, since Mira gave birth. Something's changed. Naira arrived at Frostfang Ridge exactly 3 days later. Kaelin received her privately this time. No throne room, no audience, just a small chamber overlooking the eastern forest. He looked tired. Thank you for coming, he said. The words were stilted, uncomfortable. You called in the debt. I'm here. Kaelin was quiet for a moment. Mira had our son 2 months ago. Healthy, strong, perfect alpha genetics. Congratulations. I felt nothing. The admission came out flat. I looked at him and felt nothing. No pride, no connection, just emptiness. Nira didn't know what to say to that. The bond, Kaelin continued, the one I rejected. It's gone, completely. I can't form another. The healers confirmed it. When I severed our connection, I damaged something fundamental. I can never have a true mate. I'm sorry, Naira said, and meant it. Are you?
Kaylin turned to face her. You should be celebrating. I'm alone. Exactly what I deserve for rejecting you. I don't celebrate suffering, even yours. Elder Shasa says you're thriving, that the bond power adapted to you, made you stronger, while it left me, he gestured vaguely, hollow. What do you want from me, Kaylin? Why am I here? Because I need to acknowledge something, publicly. He took a breath. I was wrong. The rejection was political. You were never weak. The bond was real, and I destroyed it for power. For image. For a mate that looks good in ceremonies but means nothing. Nira stared. You're admitting this? It's the favor I'm calling in. I'll acknowledge what I did, publicly, at the next summit, in front of every alpha who matters. But I need you there. Need you to confirm it's true, that the bond was real. Why would you do this? It'll undermine your authority. My authority is already undermined. Pacts are leaving the alliance, questioning my judgment, pointing to your success as proof my methods are failing. Kaylin's laugh was bitter. Turns out publicly rejecting your true mate and leaving her to die makes you look bad. Who knew? This won't fix things between us. I know, but maybe... He hesitated. Maybe it'll help the Omegas you're protecting. If I acknowledge you were right, if I admit the system is flawed, other alphas might follow, might start changing how they treat their lower ranks. Or they'll see it as weakness and challenge you. Probably, but I'm already being challenged, might as well be for doing something right for once. Nira studied his face, saw genuine regret there, maybe even the beginning of wisdom. I'll do it, she said. I'll come to the summit, confirm the bond was real, help you make this right. Kaylin's shoulders sagged with relief. Thank you. But Kaylin, she waited until he met her eyes. This doesn't mean I forgive you. What you did broke something that can't be fixed, changed my entire life. I'm not the wolf I would have been. I know, and His voice cracked slightly. I'm sorry. Truly. I've made a lot of mistakes, hurt a lot of wolves, but rejecting you was the worst. Not because of what it cost me, because you deserved better. Yeah, Nira said softly. I did. The summit 3 months later was packed. Every major alpha attended, everyone who mattered, all watching as Kaylin Drake stood before them and spoke. I called this summit to acknowledge a mistake, he said. His voice carried across the silent hall. 7 months ago, I rejected my true mate, Nira Hale. I told myself and everyone else it was because she was weak, because her bloodline was poor, because an Omega couldn't stand beside an Alpha King. Murmurs erupted, shocked whispers. I lied. Kaylin's voice cut through the noise. The bond was genuine, powerful. She was my match in every way that mattered. I rejected her because I was a coward, because I cared more about image than truth, about politics than honor. He gestured to Nira, standing with her core group. She survived my rejection, survived the wasteland, built something unprecedented, a society outside pack hierarchy that thrives on cooperation rather than dominance. She proved everything I believed about strength and rank was wrong. Nira stepped forward. The bond was real, she confirmed, and the rejection nearly killed me, but it also freed me, showed me there was another way to live, another way to be strong. An alpha from the Western Territories stood. What are you asking for, Kaylin? Forgiveness? Absolution? I'm asking for change, Kaylin said. I'm proposing we reform pack law, give Omegas real rights, allow challenges based on merit, not just rank. Acknowledge that strength comes in many forms. That's chaos, another alpha said. That's destroying everything we've built. What we've built is broken, Kaylin said. Nira proved that. Her people are thriving while we struggle with desertion and rebellion. The system is failing. We can adapt, or we can collapse. The debate raged for hours, but in the end, 15 of the 23 gathered alphas voted for reform. It wasn't everything, wasn't revolution, but it was change. Real, measurable change. Afterward, Kaylin approached Nira one last time. Thank you, he said, for helping me do this. I didn't do it for you, Nira said. I did it for every Omega who comes after me, so they don't have to fight as hard as I did. I know. He paused. For what it's worth, you would have been an incredible queen.
The mate I deserved but was too blind to see. I'm not a queen, Nira said. I'm just someone who refused to die when you threw me away. The rest? That was all me. All the wolves who believed in something better. She turned to leave. Nira. She looked back. I hope. Kaylin swallowed hard. I hope someday you can forgive me. Nira considered that. Considered the months of pain, the struggle, the wolves who'd died. Considered Tarak freezing in the snow. Considered the bond wound that still ached sometimes. Maybe, she said, maybe someday, but not today. She left Kaylin standing alone in the hall. Outside, her people waited. Marcus, Sarah, Garrett, Finn, the rogues who'd become family. So, Marcus said, what now? Nira looked toward the horizon, toward the wasteland that had become home. Now we build, she said. We keep building, keep proving there's another way, keep offering choice to wolves who want it. Think the pack reforms will actually change things? Sarah asked. Some things, not everything, not fast enough. Nira smiled. But it's a start, and starts matter. They walked back toward their territory together. Behind them, the old world was slowly, painfully, beginning to evolve. Ahead of them, they'd built something new, imperfect, struggling, but alive. And that was enough. 3 years later, the rogue territories had grown to 2,000 wolves across 12 settlements. They had formal treaties with 8 packs, had become a recognized political force that couldn't be ignored or dismissed. Nira stood on the same ridge where she'd once collapsed, dying, rejected, and broken. Now she looked out at a thriving society. Gardens, schools for young wolves, healers, builders, hunters, all working together without hierarchy dictating their worth. You did it, Marcus said, joining her. He was grayer now, moving slower, but still sharp, still loyal. We did it, Nira corrected. All of us. You think it'll last? I don't know. Maybe we'll fail eventually. Maybe the packs will find a way to destroy us. Maybe we'll collapse from internal problems. She smiled. But we proved it's possible. That's what matters. We proved wolves can choose, can live free, can be valued for who they are, not what they were born to be. A young Omega approached. Maybe 15, nervous but determined. Elder Nira? She started. Just Nira, Nira corrected gently. Nira, I'm from Blackwood Pack. I heard the stories about you, about how you survived, about this place. The girl's hands were shaking. I want to stay, if you'll have me. Nira looked at the girl, saw herself 3 years ago, broken and desperate, and hoping for something better. What's your name? Kaya. Well, Kaya, welcome home. Nira put a hand on her shoulder. You're safe now. You're valued here. And you'll never have to bow to anyone again unless you choose to. The girl's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Thank you so much. As Kaya was led away to get settled, Marcus spoke quietly. She looks at you like you're a hero, like you're something perfect. Then we need to fix that, Nira said. I'm not perfect. I'm just a wolf who refused to die, who got lucky and angry and stubborn enough to survive. The real heroes are the ones who came after, who built this place with me, who believed it was possible. Still, you changed the world. Maybe? Nira looked out at the settlements, at the wolves living free. Or maybe the world was ready to change, and I was just the first one angry enough to push. Either way, she smiled. Either way, we proved that rejection doesn't have to be the end, that breaking can lead to building, that sometimes the wolves the system throws away are exactly the ones who will build something better. Marcus put his arm around her shoulders. Not bad for a discarded Omega. Not bad at all. As the sun set over the rogue territories, Nira felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not because everything was perfect, not because all the problems were solved, not because the world had become fair, but because she'd survived. Had built something worth surviving for. Had proven that power didn't have to come from dominance. That strength could mean standing up when everyone said you should stay down. That sometimes the best revenge wasn't destroying your enemy. It was becoming so powerful they had to acknowledge you were right all along. Kaylin had rejected her, tried to break her, left her to die. Instead, she'd become exactly what he'd feared most. living proof that the hierarchy he'd defended was a lie. And she'd done it without becoming like him, without crushing others to rise, without sacrificing her humanity for power. She'd done it by refusing to accept that her worth was determined by her rank, by refusing to die quietly, by choosing to build instead of destroy. And in the end, that made all the difference.